Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has 10-tailed transformation in fairy tale. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Distorter and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Prologue, The Tale of the Tailed Beast, March 13th, X776. We begin our tale in an incredibly amazing world known as Earthland. A land completely comprised of magic. It's found in every home and sold at any marketplace. Thanks to its wide abundance, it has easily become a part of everyday life. That's what most people see it as, nothing but a tool to help improve and get by in their daily routines. But there are also those that treat magic with the utmost respect and truly realize its importance. They devote their entire lives to its practice and discovering more and more of its amazing capabilities. These people are known as wizards. Most wizards are banded together in many different types of magical guilds. They pliant their skills in search of fame and fortune. In a small nation known as Fiori, many different guilds are found here and spread far across its landscape. But this isn't where the real tale of today begins. This story begins on the country of Bosco. Though small, the country is known to have a large quantity in nature and wildlife. For folk that want a life of quiet or tranquility of the surrounding forests, this is one of the main places to go. A good portion of the villages at Bosco have known to have made their homes within the forests. Though it's not completely a land at peace. Like everything else, it holds its own dark secrets. The most prominent would be the slave trades that has been known to occur secretly. Even though some know the truth about what was happening behind the scenes, most others just report that people have just seemingly gone missing from out of the blue. Though that doesn't mean that it's happened everywhere in Bosco. One such place would be Foglia Village. Folia 1. Foglia Village is a large and a bit of a quaint place. Unlike most other villages, it was surrounded by forest and wildlife, instead of using the forestry as the village itself. The village didn't have an actual guild, but that didn't mean wizards weren't present. A little over half of the village was comprised of them as a defense force of sorts, though like a guild they took different jobs as to receive income. Around the whole village were giant wooded pikes that were 15 meters tall. The only way to get in and out of the village were the 3 giant wooden gates that were located in the north, east, and west wings of the village. On each gate was a symbol that resembled a leaf on it. Each door was guarded by 2 wizards each. Every house or shop was comprised of white, red, or orange bricks. At the center of the village was a large pond with a wide 4-way intersecting bridge to get from one wing to another. Though that wasn't the only one in the village. There were other smaller ones that led to other locations, but this was the main bridge. For the parts that wasn't tied with the bridge were small 2-foot brick walls, so no one could accidentally fall in. Every path was made of cobblestone. At the south end of the Foglia village were these 10 feet lifelike stone statues of 4 men standing on concrete blocks, in a large circle of grass. The first statue was a man with long smooth hair, some of it framing the sides of his face, wearing a headband with the same leaf symbol on it. His legs were spread and planted firmly into the ground while his hands were clasped together, as his fingers interlocked. He wore armor that started from his neck and continued down his arms until stopping at the elbows. Thin pieces from both sides joined to hold the plate covering his chest and back, while 2 more thin pieces covered half the sides of his legs. He wore a shirt and baggy pants underneath which stopped just above his ankles, which seemed to have been covered by tape. He wore sandals as footwear. The front of the stone under him had a name engraved. Hashirama Senju. The second statue had a man with his arms crossed, with spiky hair. He wore a hapuri on his head with the leaf symbol engraved on the middle of it. His face has 3 thin markings. One under both eyes, which seemed to have an eternal glare in them, and a vertical one on the chin. His armor was the same as Hashirama's, but he had guards protecting the front and back of his waist. He seemed to have the same cloths as Hashirama as well, but his had a puffy fur collar and sandals. His named Red Tobarama Senju. The third statue was that of a man who was standing straight, with his legs spread apart a little bit. His palms were pressed together, and his head was slightly bowed. His combat attire consisted of a jumpsuit, which featured mesh segments over the lower portions of his limbs, and a gauntlet that covered his right wrist, forearm, and elbow. He also wore an armored hood with a bandana-like leaf forehead protector over this, which featured 2 long straps. His name is Hiruzen Sarutobi. The last and final statue was a man that was standing in a contrapposto position, with him putting more weight on his left leg. He had his left arm resting on his hip, while his right one hung loosely to the side. He also had spiky hair, but 2 bangs were hanging down both sides of his face, with a leaf headband underneath it. His attire consisted of pants and long-sleeved shirt with 2 bands each on both of his sleeves, a flak jacket, and sandals. He wore a short-sleeved long haori over his normal clothing, decorated by flames-like motifs on the bottom edges. His engraved name read Minato Namikaze. There was another smaller stone that stood out in front of all of the rest. It was in a slanted position so that it could be easier to see, and it had something written on it as well. The Foglia Umbra. Folii 2. The Foglia Umbra were the leaders of Foglia village, with Hashirama being the one who founded it. These men were very accomplished wizards and probably some of the strongest ones to exist in all of Bosco, probably even a good portion of Earthland itself, and the claim wouldn't be too far off. Everyone in the village or others that knew the Fog Lie Umbra personally knew how powerful that each one individually was. Hashirama was a master at wood-make magic, very much able to surpass anyone with the same ability, and could create entire forests as well. Tobirama was known to be a master at water magic and like Hashirama could perform feats with it that other water magic users could only dream of performing. Many say that his skill with the element was so proficient that he had the capability to manipulate an ocean with ease. Hiruzen was given the moniker the Professor among the wizards. He's skilled in a vast majority of different kinds of magic that he completely mastered. He's rumored to be the strongest of the four even though he couldn't perform the first would-make magic, or had water magic as powerful as the seconds. Minato was a very powerful wizard in his own right as well. Though he didn't carry as much destructive force as the first three, he was probably the worst one to underestimate in a battle, especially considering that he was an excellent strategist on the battlefield, and was able to keep a level head in the most heated of situations, even coming up with plans and backup plans for victory in a matter of seconds. He also invented techniques that made him incredibly dangerous. He merged two different magics, script and God's leg, to create a whole new type of magic. Something that has been known as spatial magic. Basically it's instant teleportation that makes him vanish and reappear in a yellow flash. That soon became his moniker, and he was proclaimed as the fastest man in the world. He was also known for destroying a large variety of dark guilds or sabotaging others, which made him incredibly notorious. To most it seemed close to impossible to reach the level of skill and power that these men possessed, even to some that were guild masters. But there was one person that believed he could reach that amount of strength. A lone boy of nothing but 8 years of age was standing in front of the statues and eyed them all with a look of determination. He was the only one in his village with sun-kissed blonde hair and electric blue eyes. There were also 6 whisker-like marks on his face, 3 on both cheeks, wearing a plain blue shirt under a sleeveless orange hoodie, green shorts and blue sandals. This boy's name is Naruto Uzumaki, an aspiring young mage who had very big dreams. Not only did he want to become a very powerful individual in the future, but he wanted to gain a level of strength that surpasses the Fog Lie Umbra. Naruto balled his fists and closed his eyes and thought, I just have to get stronger than them. I promised and I won't go back on it. Lost in thought again, Naruto? Naruto opened his eyes to see his school teacher, Iruka Yumino, walking towards him. Iruka is a man of average height and build. He had brown hair that he keeps in a ponytail, dark eyes and a scar that runs across the bridge of his nose. He wears a green shirt with blue jeans and same color sandals. His sleeves are also rolled up about 1/4 of the way. Naruto turned to him and smiled. Hey Iruka-sensei. What are you doing here? Iruka stood in front of Naruto. Well, I came to check up on you. It's my job as your teacher to be responsible for you, isn't it? He said jokingly. Naruto laughed a little bit. Maybe during school, which was over hours ago. Iruka smiled himself. Yeah, you're right. When school's over, you're technically out of my hands. Though don't think I haven't realized that you decided to skip the last 3 hours. Iruka walked by him as he looked up at the statues as well. I don't know. Guess I was half expecting you to probably paint the statues to look like clowns. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Come on. That was a long time ago, he yelled. Iruka laughed some more before turning to his student. A long time ago? That was last month. But tell me again, why did you do it? My memory's a bit foggy, he said, feigning ignorance. I did it because when I get older I'm going to become a mage that's stronger than all of them combined. That's my way of getting my message across. Naruto said defiantly. Ah, that's right. I remember now. He started to count on his fingers. But then I remember you getting chewed out by me, Kakashi, Lord Third, Lord Jiraiya and a good portion of the village as well. Naruto crossed his arms and pouted. Iruka sighed. But still, that wasn't a very smart thing to do, Naruto. I mean, these men are all incredibly respected themselves, and trying to deface them just to boast something like that is just begging for trouble. Naruto put his hands behind his head and turned his head the other way. Come on, sensei. No more lectures. I already said that I wouldn't do it again, okay? Do you also promise to stop skipping classes? Naruto still wasn't looking at him. If it wasn't so boring, then maybe I wouldn't have to sneak out. In that moment his stomach chose to grumble loudly, making the boy hold it and groan. Iruka patted the boy on the head. Guess that also means that you skipped out on lunch too, huh? Well then I guess I could treat you today. How about some good old-fashioned ramen? Naruto whipped his head to him and smiled bright. He pointed a fist in the air. Yes, sir. It took them a little over 10 minutes to get to their destination. A nice little restaurant that was in the east wing of the village. It was composed of brown bricks with 2 thick wooden double doors. The floor on the inside was covered in white tiles while all of the walls had piece-colored ones. There was one long table with a red top that went from one end of the wall to the other. There were a total of 10 stools without backs, with the actual seat being round and colored red. And what's Naruto without a Chiraku? Nothing, alright. Naruto cheered as he and Iruka walked inside. A girl that looked about 16 was behind the counter, wearing a white apron and had long brown hair and eyes, looked up from her notepad and smiled. Hey there, guys? How have you two been? she said. Naruto likes to come to this place for food every week ever since he was brought here 4 years ago. The moment he had his first bite of ramen, his visits became more and more frequent. Then Iruka became a bit of a regular since he either treated or was brought by Naruto to come here. Naruto took a seat in a rush. We've been good, Ayam. How's you and your father doing? Iruka asked, though Ayam sighed. Honestly, I think that we could be doing better. Ayam, who are you talking to? An older male voice said from a room in the back. Naruto and Iruka are here, Dad. Come out here and greet them. There was a bit of rustling and clanging of metal objects, but pretty soon a man, with a white cap covering his brown hair, giving off the appearance that he had none. He also had on a white chef's cooking uniform except an apron. Hey, old man Tucci. Naruto said. Tucci smiled. Hey there, Naruto. Nice to see my 2 favorite customers. Iruka leaned in a bit. Ayam has been telling us that you guys were in a bit of trouble. Tucci sighed and rubbed the side of his head. Oh, you don't know the half of it. Thing is, sometimes we might not get our monthly supply of ingredients or cooking utensils. It's like every time someone tries to send things our way, it either doesn't get here, or when it does, it's half of what we ordered. It's actually been getting a little tough to cook anything. We've nearly run out of firewood, so we needed to use our own money to buy 2 fire-charged lacrimas, 1 for both stoves. You know how expensive those can be? Regular ones that someone can charge with magic are cheap, but ones with magic already implanted are twice as much, and, since we're not wizards, we needed to buy 2. We're not getting much money from business because we don't have much supplies. The small lacrimas can hold the charge for about a few weeks before we have to get more. Naruto furrowed his brows. Then what'll happen if you can't get more supplies? Ayam sighed. I'm afraid that if things keep going the way that they are, then we might have to go out of business. Naruto rose up and slammed his hands on the table. What? No way. Iruka sighed as well. I'm really sorry to hear that. Look, I can help you guys out if you want. I mean, I can charge any regular lacrima with a fire spell myself. I could even buy some. Tucci shook his head. No, don't get involved in this yourself, Iruka. Even though we appreciate the thought, remember the lacrimas aren't the only problem. This has all been one big giant mess. But I'm sure things will turn around. Naruto wasn't convinced of that in any way. He looked downcast at the red table before he felt Tucci pat his head. Come on, boy. There's no need to go looking sad. We've been in situations like this before, but we got past them. Naruto looked at him. Really? The ramen chef nodded. Well, then what happens if you guys do have to close down shop? Tucci cupped a finger to his chin and pondered for a moment. I guess that we'll just have to go and take our business elsewhere. Elsewhere? Like to another village? Iruka asked, but once again Tucci shook his head as a negative. Actually, I heard that the country of Fiori was a good place to go see. Well, at least the places that involved the least bit of trouble. If something happened, then that's where we're going to probably go. Besides, I heard some dark things have been going on around in Bosco. If anything, I want to make sure that my daughter and I are nowhere near any of the mess that could probably start brewing in the future. This got Naruto really curious. What dark things was Tucci probably talking about? He hasn't heard anything bad that was happening in Bosco. Though now that he thought about it, he did hear some things about how some people have been turning up missing here and there. But something like that hasn't happened to anyone in the village. That couldn't really be a coincidence, could it? Maybe something bad really was happening, but what was it exactly? Could it be those missing people? Naruto thought. But enough of our personal problems. You two are hungry, and I always have enough in storage to get you both satisfied. Let me guess, your usuals? They both nodded while he and Ayam went back, not even needing her notepad this time. Seeing as they had some time to themselves, Iruka decided to start up another conversation. So Naruto, I've been meaning to ask, how's your magic training coming along? Did you learn anything new? Naruto nodded. Yup, I can finally reach the 2nd level with my takeover magic. Just 7 more to go. Iruka smiled. Really? You can already use the 2nd form? From the stories that I heard, it took others from your family years to unlock each one. Each form is supposed to be tougher than the last. Naruto sighed. You don't have a clue. I trained my butt off day in and day out to get my magic strong enough for it, but it's worth it. It takes a lot out of me though. I'm not surprised. Your magic is supposed to be considered a lost magic. Those are really tough to master. Even Kushina had trouble trying to master it. Iruka suddenly stopped and looked at Naruto. The boy had a gaze of longing dawning his face as he remembered his mother. She unfortunately passed away last year in December after coming down with a fatal illness. His father was Minato Namikaze himself, but he had passed 2 years after Naruto's birth, fighting a very powerful dark wizard. The identity of this person is still unknown, with only Minato to have seen his face. Though the people of the village didn't know that Naruto was related to him, some had their suspicions as they kept making comparisons between the two. He just looked too similar for it to be a coincidence. Though few people actually knew the truth. Kushina had raised Naruto for the majority, but she wasn't alone. A man who was a family friend of theirs, who was also a wizard, Kakashi Hatake, had helped support Kushina and sometimes Naruto. When he came back from missions, Kushina would let Kakashi sometimes spend the day with the boy. He would either buy him lunch, take him to some secret locations outside the village or show him different kinds of spells or magical items that the blonde had never seen before. There was also the third Fogly Umbra, Hiruzen Sarutobi, who retook the mantle of village leader since Naruto's father had passed. He was sort of a grandfather figure to Naruto, who was also amazingly a family friend. He comforted Naruto first when his mother passed away and let the boy stay with him for a week until he managed to get the boy to live in the village orphanage. The woman who ran it was a close friend of Kushina, and she was more than happy to look after her son, along with the other children. Finally, there were his godparents Jiraiya and Tsunade, who were also very powerful and accomplished wizards. They would try to visit when they could, but they had very important jobs working for the Wizard Council. Jiraiya was their network of operations spy master, while Tsunade was head of their medical department. Yet unlike those who practice in healing kinds of magic, she also invented a type of magic that makes her a very dangerous fighter, known as build magic. It increases her bodily functions and augments her strength to an inhuman amount. Though in her spare time she's also been known to gamble and lose a lot. She had lost so much money in so many different bets she's been nicknamed the legendary sucker. She was also the granddaughter of Hashirama. Jiraiya was worse. He is a pervert to the fullest extent, and he shows it by peeking on pretty women or writing perverted books. Kushina dreaded when he came around sometimes. If anything, she made sure that he wouldn't try to pass any of his tendencies on Naruto, lest she relives him of the thing that makes him a man. Finally, there was Iruka, who was able to understand how Naruto felt. He used to live in a town in the mountains with his parents until a giant monster of unknown origin destroyed it. His parents sacrificed themselves to save Iruka, which was something that was forever ingrained into his mind. Though unlike Naruto, he didn't have a shoulder to cry on after the incident occurred. He just wandered around with no direction until he came upon Bosco months later. Iruka sighed at his own recollection. He has been in the exact same situation as the boy, and he brings up something like that from out of the blue? He ought to smack himself for sounding so insensitive. Naruto, he spoke, not able to bring himself to look at the boy. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Naruto shook his head. It's alright, sensei. You didn't say it on purpose. You know, before she died, she made me promise that I would keep training my magic and become strong. So I told her that I'd be stronger than all the leaders of Folia village. Iruka's eyes opened in realization. So the thing with the statues. Naruto placed his elbows on the table with his chin on his fists. Guess I wanted to show that I was serious, that I could do it. That I would be super strong. Stronger than old man third, my old man. But the thing is, I feel like I'm not doing this for me. Iruka turned to him this time and saw Naruto looking in the opposite direction. What are you talking about? Naruto shrugged. I don't know. I mean, I used to feel that I wanted to become stronger because I wanted to be the best wizard in the village. But after what happened, it's just different. Naruto turned forward and grabbed his head with both hands and growled. I don't even know what I'm trying to say anymore. Iruka gave a small smile. He placed his own elbows on the table and interlocked his fingers. I think I might know what you mean. I bet you used to think about how strong you could get when you started to train in your magic. How others would respect you for being a powerful mage. But Kushina was very important to you, and when you promised her that you would continue to grow stronger, I figure that you're now doing it for her instead of yourself. He patted Naruto's back. She may not be with us anymore, but you still hold her in your heart. The promise that you made to her, I believe that by accomplishing that, then you would be honoring her final wishes. All she ever wanted was the best for you, Naruto. I think that since she knew that she wouldn't be around to teach you or raise you, then she wanted you to be able to protect yourself and grow into the man she wished that she could have seen you become. Naruto was speechless. He never thought of his situation like that. Well, it was tough for him to form into words, but what Iruka said made sense. He wanted his mother to be proud of him. It was all that she wished for. To make something amazing of himself, just as she believed he could be. Naruto smiled as he looked at Iruka. Thanks, sensei. No problem, Naruto. Right as they finished their heart-wrenching turn-warming conversation, Ayam walked back in with a brown tray that had 2 white bowls with red lines circling near the top. Here you both go. Made them to absolute perfection. All right. Naruto cheered while he and Iruka grabbed their chopsticks. Thank you for the food, they declared before they both started to slurp down the succulent noodles with gusto. If there was one thing Naruto would never get tired of, it would be his delectable ramen. After he ate, Naruto waved goodbye to the Ichirakas and to Iruka as he made his way to the orphanage. It was getting pretty late, and his caretaker was probably worried about where he was. As the thought passed his mind, he was already making his way to the front door. He didn't even get the chance to knock before it swung open. A woman with brown hair and eyes, with a blue long-sleeved shirt and yellow pants, was staring intently at Naruto, who looked a little nervous at seeing it. Naruto Uzumaki, where have you been? Do you know that it is past 9 p.m.? I've been worried sick about you. Naruto looked at the ground and shuffled his feet a bit. Sorry, Mia. I didn't mean to stay out so late. I was going to come back, but then Iruka-sensei found me hanging around the stone statues and we went to eat at Ichiraku. Mia sighed and placed her hands on her hips. Honestly, child, I have no idea what I'm going to do with you. You just can't seem to stay in one place, huh? Naruto smiled brightly. Guess not. Mia smiled and ushered Naruto in before locking the door. The inside of the building was nothing special but not in poor condition either. The entire inside was wooded with red rugs covering the floors on all hallways. There were doors that led to the children's bedrooms on both the left and the right. The stairs were straight ahead leading to the second floor, which had more rooms. The lunchroom was on the current floor along with Mia's room. Well, since you already ate, there's no need for you to worry about going hungry for the night. Can I at least trust you to head to bed for me? Yup. Good night, Mia. Naruto jogged to stairs since his room was on the second floor. When he came upon his door, he entered and closed it. He was one of the few that was lucky enough to have a room all to himself. He didn't mind the company of the other kids here since he was friends with some of them, but a good portion of them had to share their rooms with a roommate. He liked the privacy that he was allowed to have. Plus, he wouldn't have to deal with another kid's sleeping habits, or weird quirks that he had no intention of discovering. He also wouldn't have to move or rearrange any of his stuff. It's not like he had much, but it was still something. Like all the bedrooms, there was a window, a bed, a clothes drawer, a desk, and a bookshelf. But Naruto had a few mementos that his family/friends had given him. A good portion of his bookshelf was full of books about different kinds of magic or stories that revolve around fiction, which was his favorite genre from Irika. He had a picture of his mom and dad with his mom holding a baby Naruto on his desk along with a long thin dark black cloth with a white swirl in the center of it. The sign was apparently the symbol of the village his mother was originally from before it was destroyed. How? He didn't know because his mother never said, but it didn't really matter now, did it? What's done was done, and nothing could change that. The final thing was a yellow sphere sitting on a circular short pedestal next to the picture. It was something that Kakashi had bought him for his room. Since the room was currently dark, making it hard for Naruto to see properly, he walked over to his desk, which was by his window letting a bit of moonlight in. He placed his hand on the sphere. A small yellow magic circle shone within it before the sphere emitted a shine that wasn't too bright but bright enough for Naruto to see everything perfectly. Gotta love light lacrimas, he said as he took off his hoodie while walking to his clothes drawer. He opened it and put his hoodie inside before doing the same with the shirt. His blue sandals were next, but he just placed them next to the drawer. He removed his shorts and placed them away as well before opening up the second drawer and getting some pajamas. They were a plain light blue with toads on them, which even came with a nightcap. Jiraiya bought him these. He climbed into his bed when he was finished, only supplying enough magic in the lacrima for about 2 minutes. It would turn off by itself. In mere moments he drifted away into slumber. Rumble rumble. Naruto groaned and slightly opened his eyes, woken up by a strange noise. Looking out one of the windows, he saw that it was still night out. Maybe past midnight, maybe later. Though he was confused as to whatever had disturbed him, he was too tired to care. Shrugging it off, he closed his eyes once more, trying to block out any more sounds. Rumble 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 rumble. Naruto groaned as the noises got louder and more frequent. He grabbed the other end of his pillow, covered his now blocked left ear, in irritation. He could tell that the noises were coming from outside, so he couldn't so much but hope that whatever was making them would stop soon, or else he would be very snappy. Crash boom. Gya. The hell? Naruto jumped up from his position at the sound of his window breaking. Whatever it was that broke it also rammed into the door ahead of it and destroyed it. Fully awake now, he hopped from his bed and turned to where his door used to be. The high viewpoint of the full moon providing enough light to clearly see the object. A cannonball! More explosions sounded and shook the building a bit, while screams of panic were now clearly heard from the destroyed window. Bright orange and yellow light had been noticed in his peripheral vision. He ran to get a look outside, and because of the position of where the orphanage was located, and where his room was, he had a pretty good vantage point. The sight nearly made his heart stop. Folia village was being attacked. Multiple houses and buildings were lit with flame. Others partially or completely destroyed. Civilians were running around and scrambling in a panic. Children were crying at the situation or were screaming for their parents to come back to them. A whizzing sound was heard as cannon fire rang out again as cannonballs crashed into another building. But what really drew his attention were when a few people landed on a couple of houses and pointed their hands out. Purple magic circles flashed in front of them before energy blasts of the same color was released, making contact with the ground, sending the people that was caught in the attack to be killed or flung away bruised, but alive. Naruto clenched his fist and teeth at the sight. Who the hell are these bastards? Why are they doing this? In a rush, he threw off his pajamas and threw them on the bed. He quickly changed into the clothes he was wearing the previous day and stuffed his sleepwear in his drawer. Turning towards the window, he could see the silhouette of a figure heading straight for his direction. In haste, he hid under his desk a few seconds before someone crashed through the rest of his window. Now let's see what I can find in this dump. Must be some decent merchandise somewhere. This person was obviously a male by the tone of voice, yet Naruto could tell that this was one of the people that was helping attack the village. He had no idea how many there were, but it had to have been a great number for anyone to pull something like this, especially considering that it was the third largest village in Bosco. Where did these guys come from? What's he talking about? Naruto thought as the strange man was walking around his dark room. He heard a rush of footsteps and turned to where his broken door was. Naruto! Are you okay? Mia called out but gasped as she saw a strange man standing in the middle of the boy's room with the boy himself nowhere to be found. In the dim light of the moon she could see the evil smirk he gave. Well, what do we have here? A pretty young lady? You'll do nicely. He started to slowly stalk towards her, while she backed away. Who are you? What have you done to the person in this room? I have no idea what you're talking about. No one was in here when I arrived. But that doesn't matter, does it? There are others in this building, right? Plus I guess those bozos can make use of you as well. He lifted his hand, making a small magic circle appear before a purple flame was in its place. Magic! She tripped on some pieces of the broken door, being paralyzed by fear. Though she was worried for where Naruto could have gone, she knew exactly what was happening from being woken and seeing the ruckus outside. She quickly got the rest of the children away through a secret passage that led to a tunnel underground the village, that was built in case of an emergency like this, though she panicked when she realized Naruto wasn't with them. Naruto himself was getting ready to pounce on this scumbag. He wasn't going to let some low-life thug hurt one of his friends. Judging by the amount of magic energy that he was sensing, he didn't seem to be all that strong. He could take him, no problem. Naruto quietly slipped from under his desk and was standing behind the man without him noticing. Leave her alone, he declared and charged. The rogue wizard didn't get a second to acknowledge who had just spoken before something had swept both of his legs from under him. He was tossed him into the air for a few seconds before he landed hard on the ground, as he groaned at his aching back. Mia was surprised if anything, not expecting the boy she was looking for to slide right under the man's legs and momentarily saving her. Though she didn't get a chance to rest as Naruto had grabbed her hand trying to help her stand up, and it was then she remembered how dire the situation was. Mia, are you alright? Naruto asked, concerned. Mia smiled and gently grasped both the boy's hands in hers. Yes, I'm fine, Naruto. I was actually looking for you. The villagets. Yeah, I saw. Naruto said, cutting her off. What about the other kids? I've managed to get them all to a safe place. You were the only one not with us. If we hurry, then we should go regroup with them. They both stopped as they heard a growl from behind them. The man stood back up slowly and held another flame in his hand, staring at the two of them in rage. Naruto only turned his head to him. You damn brat. You should have stayed hiding. Now you'll get it. He drew back his arm with the flame while using his magic to make it bigger. This is what you get for trying to be a hero. He threw his arm forward, letting loose the fireball, intent on turning the pair to ashes, but it didn't get anywhere near that point. Instead of igniting into more flames, it was caught by a long, thick mass of blue flames with black markings. The two adults were shocked to see the blue flame had erupted from Naruto's tailbone area. That won't work on me, Naruto said as his flame tail curled around the fireball, making it vanish. The black markings had flashed purple as well before they turned black again. The Rouge Wizard backed up at what he had just witnessed. No way. You have magic powers. What did you just do? Mia looked at Naruto, who stood up and faced the unknown man with his blue tail of flames still visible and waving slightly behind him. She knew this magic, for she had known Kushina was the previous user to it. A special form of takeover magic that was passed down for many generations only through her specific bloodline. Naruto, that magic. I had no idea that you could use it as well. Naruto looked over his shoulder and smiled. Yeah, Mom's been training me in it. I'm happy she did too. The other occupant that was still in the room saw this as his chance to attack. Another magic circle shone on his left hand, encasing it in purple fire. But this time he didn't throw it but jumped towards Naruto in an attempt to give him a burning haymaker. Naruto reacted just in time and used his tail to catch the man's hand and wrap it around, absorbing the purple flame. The same results happened as before. The black markings had flashed purple before turning back to black. The man growled. This kid was really irritating. He was basically wasting magic with this brat absorbing his flames. But then he smirked as he noticed something. He lifted his right arm, making one last purple magic circle and encasing his fist in his fire element. Sorry, but I got two arms. Naruto was still motionless as his fist was heading towards his face, and the man smirked at this, though he didn't expect a second flaming blue tail to catch his other fist and absorbing his fire. What the? Impossible! Naruto glared at him with ferocity. Yeah, but I got two tails. With no more words to say, he used his tails to heft the rogue wizard into the air and hurled him with amazing force through his window, while also taking out a good piece of the wall as well. His tails vanished. He didn't bother to look at Mia as he walked over to his desk and grabbed the black cloth with the swirling symbol that his mother had given to him. He gripped it tightly before wrapping it around his forehead and tying it with two 1-foot-long tails at the end. Mia, you need to get out of here, she gasped at his words. Me, what are you talking about? I came here so we can both escape. It's not safe for anyone in the village. The people need to evacuate. Naruto didn't look back but focused his sights in the air. Cannonballs were raining from outside of the walls, which meant a mass of forces must have been gathered outside of there. He didn't know if any of the village's forces were out there trying to fight them off, but it didn't seem likely since there was a scarce abundance of spells being thrown around. I need to try and help the other wizards. Mia looked appalled and gasped. What are you talking about? You're just a boy. You may be able to use some of your magic, but that doesn't mean you can just go out and fight people whenever you want. Let's join the others already. Don't be reckless. The boy just balled his fists. I'm sorry, he said before he hopped out from the hole in the wall onto a lower building. Mia couldn't do anything as she helplessly watched him race off. She clasped her hands hard and closed her eyes in prayer for him, and shed tears. Hiruzen, decked out in his battle armor, was dealing with a good mass of dark wizards that had suddenly shown up in the night. If anything, a scout would have noticed an army approaching the village, especially one of this size. He slammed both hands on the ground, making a dark green magic circle form. Swamp of the underworld. He called as 15 dark wizards were suddenly waist, nearly chest deep in really dense and sticky mud. He sighed as his allies finished off their own opponents, though one slipped away and was trying to strike Hiruzen from behind with a sword. He was interrupted by a blast of blue lightning hitting his flank and sending him sprawled over the ground unconscious. The third Favliombre turned to the one for the save. He was fit and relatively tall, with spiky silver hair, and a dark-colored right eye. His own leaf headband was covering his left one with the rest of his face hidden under a mask. He wore a simple blue suit with a forest green flak jacket, strapped-up sandals and plated gloves. "Ah, Kakashi, it's good to see you here," Hiruzen said while his gaze shifted to the man that Kakashi struck. "How did we not see this?" Kakashi asked as he looked to see more cannons fire into the village. "They must have massed to the east earlier in the day. Then when they were nearing the vicinity, I figured that they must have used a very advanced cloaking spell so they wouldn't be discovered. Then they attacked during late night when our guards were at our weakest." Kakashi finished for him. He narrowed his eyes at the whole situation. This assault on the village, it was orchestrated very thoroughly. Whoever the ringleader was that had done this, if Hiruzen had to guess, was probably either on the other side of the village walls or had paid someone off with specific instruction on how and when to execute an attack like this. But who would do this and why? What reason would there be for anyone to attack us at all? We have no enemies. Hiruzen's eyes widened. Unless that's not the issue. Those multiple reports about homes and towns getting ransacked all around Bosco, then people start to turn up missing. Oh no, Kakashi! I want you and every able-bodied mage to find any civilians to get them escorted from the village through the secret tunnels. This is a mass kidnapping. Hurry, time is of the essence. Without another word, Kakashi and the other wizards previously helping Hiruzen scattered and went to perform their last orders. More rogue wizards saw the old man and surrounded him. If anything, he would be the one to stay back and take care of as many enemies as he could. He may not have been totally in his prime anymore, but he was still the strongest in the village. One of the strongest in the whole region on Bosco. If it were 50 or 100 men, then he would fight with everything that he could muster, and then some. I can only hope for the best and trust in everyone's ability. Naruto, I hope that you're somewhere safe. Naruto was sneaking through smaller passageways as he made his way to the east entrance of the village. That was the only direction where all of the cannon fire was coming from. As he made his way through, he didn't catch any civilians anywhere. Though that was to be expected. Their home was under attack by rogue wizards and probably other mercenaries. He caught glimpses of both wizards from his home and some rogue wizards battling it out. Some were single battles, some were in groups, and some were just heading to another location entirely. But he couldn't afford to let either side see him, or know of his intentions. There was a good chance that Mia would tell either the old man or Kakashi about where he was, but that was a risk that he would have to take. He may not have been the smartest or know many things, but there was one thing that he did know. Hiruzen was the leader of the village, so instead of taking on these enemies head-on, he would have to tend to the people first. They came before anything else. That was something the old man told him on an aspect that makes a good leader, and he took it to heart. But that also meant that there was no one else in the village that could deal with the armies besides himself. Naruto's magic turns him into a literal juggernaut. It was perfect for the heavy assault that he was planning. He may not have perfected it, but he nearly mastered the first stage of his magic and has decent control with the second one. He knew what he was doing was reckless beyond belief, but to protect his home it needed to be done. Thanks to darkness and the looming shadows of the surrounding areas, he made it to the east gate of the village. He exited the giant doors and made his way into the surrounding forests where the shots were coming from. He was traveling both deeper into the woods and farther away from the village, but he knew that he was getting closer to his destination. He crouched behind some bushes as he peeked through to see masses of only men in a very large and exposed clearing. If he had to go on numbers, he would have to guess around over 500, maybe more. Though he noticed something strange about a good deal of them. They were wearing burgundy robes with yellow belts and blue pants. They had on black headgear, and some sort of plated mask with a strange symbol. They also carried wooden staff with the ends looking like a crab's claw with a black gem in the middle. He saw one man talk to one of the mask-wearing ones. Since he didn't want to risk being detected by getting closer, Naruto strained his ears and used his sensitive hearing to listen. "Are you sure that any of these people will be useful?" The one with the plaited mask spoke. The unruly-looking man that he was talking to grinned. "I guarantee it. They might not seem like much at first glance, but the civilians here are very good workers. Especially with how good most of them can grow crops, or manages hard labor. Any new buildings in the village were built from their own hands. If that doesn't scream dedicated workers, I don't know what does." The mask-wearing man nodded. "That is very good. I'm sure they will all be very useful in nearing the tower's completion. The other man frowned. You and your masked band of weirdos are still going to pay in full for making us go through all of this trouble, right? He nodded, not fazed by the man's slight glare. It is all being shipped to your current place of residence. If we tend to keep up our end of the deal, then you need to keep assisting us as well. The burly man smirked and turned his head while loading another cannon. Good, so we're on the same page here. You scratch our backs and all that jazz, then we have no problems. Naruto silently gasped at what he heard. These people, no, these monsters were the cause of all of those missing people around the country. They were ransacking their homes and kidnapping them to force them to build some sort of tower thing. That's what they were currently doing right now. He couldn't believe it, and he had to find out from the horse's mouth about this. Naruto could barely hold in his overwhelming anger at these monsters. He completely lost it when the masked man laughed about the haul that they currently made. Naruto's eyes changed with the scare, now black, with yellow irises and pupils that are the shape of a black four-pointed star with 4 black dots around it. These jerks, I'll make them pay, he said darkly before his body was covered in red light with black particles flashing around before a massive explosion of magic was released. The force was so strong that it blew away some of the forest surrounding the area and all of the weapons were knocked over. Some of the men were still standing while some were knocked to their sides. As the wind generated from the force died away, all of the occupants could only look up in horror at what they were witnessing. A very massive sandy brown colored tanuki, with dark blue markings all over its face, body, and thick tail was standing before them. Its ears were the same color, and the small nose on its face was black. It had razor-sharp claws on its hands and feet. It has a jagged, concave mouth with sharp teeth that was stuck in a massive frown bearing the eyes that Naruto had previously. Without warning, it gave a very loud beastly roar that echoed across the entire forest. Its form even more menacing with the full moon behind it, silhouetting some of its body. WWHA, what the fuck is that thing? The burly man from before screamed in fright. Most of the others were both speechless and too scared to move. This beast had literally appeared out of nowhere and was currently proclaiming its presence to the entire world. When it was done roaring, it stood still for a moment before tilting its head a bit to the side while shifting it downwards. Its eyes shadowed until it opened its left one as it glowed, bestowing a chilling gaze to them all. It only increased their fear. The beast turned its head upwards once more and gave a psychotic laugh into the night before gazing at them completely. Shahoa. I hope all of you ASS scum bastards are ready to die. Let's do this. Ahahaha. 3. Not expecting the monster's capability of speech, they were not prepared for how it spoke of being the instrument of their demise. But with the adrenaline rushing through some of their systems thanks to the fear, they picked up their cannons and aimed them at the beast. What the hell are you all just standing around for? Shoot the damn thing already. The same burly man from before shouted, making the men controlling the cannons to let them loose on the beast in a continuous onslaught. Though they soon realized that even with its size and close proximity, the cannons were not making so much as a dent in its hide. Actually, they were making dents in the places they hit, but the cannonballs sunk into its body a bit before they plopped back out. Though the substance that fell along with them wasn't any form of blood or fur. Is that sand? A monster made from sand. The cannons aren't working. Where did something like this even come from? For Naruto, he was enjoying this immensely. Ever since he learned how to perform the full takeover portion of his magic, he wanted to try it against someone, though he knew that he couldn't do that. Against any one person it is completely unnecessary and overpowered. Plus no one besides Irika, Kakashi, Hiruzen, his godparents, and now Mia even knew that he could perform the magic. Now he had the perfect test dummies. What made this even more fun was that he hasn't even done anything to them, yet they seemed to want to run away in fear. At least nothing physical. Just a few evil poses against the moon, which he thought made him look more badass by the way, some psychotic laughter, and some choice words, and these guys were nearly wetting themselves. The fact that their weapons weren't effective against him just seemed to add more into his favor. But as much fun as it was, he knew that he couldn't stay like this for long. Fist level or not, with his current reserves of magic, he could probably only hold this form for 10 minutes at the most. 5 if he expends any extra magic, but he couldn't play around here. If the situation called for magic, then he would have to provide for it. I don't know if I can beat all of them, especially since it looks like all those robed guys probably know magic. I mean, why else would they have those dumb-looking staffs? I'll need to take out as many as I can and hope that they fall back, but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't try to take them all out. Haven't completely mastered this form sand techniques, but I still have other moves I can use. With his mind set, he lifted his giant right arm and made a fist. Get ready, he exclaimed before bringing it down hard onto the ground and some unfortunate to be crushed underneath it, the force causing another small shockwave through some of the clearing. Another group of the Rouges were scrambling and prepared their weapons again. Cannon fire rang out and was heading for Naruto's face, but he lifted his other arm to block the shots. Though Naruto deemed that something was wrong as he winced a little bit. Looking at the back of his hand to his wrist, he noticed that the cannonballs were slightly glowing yellow before he shook them off into the crowd below him. Cannonballs mixed with magic? Crap, I guess some of these guys must be wizards too. Not just the robed ones. I keep taking those, and even the Shikaku form won't last too long. Guess I got no other choice then. With a growl, Naruto swiftly brought around his tail to his left flank and smacked away some of the force that shot the magic cannons at him. Though he wasn't finished as his tail while coming back once again and charged into the same group, throwing away more of them. You pests are going to have to try harder than that. Ha ha ha. He punched down on another group, once again crushing some and making others soar in different directions. The man in the robe that was speaking before had his staff at the ready while gazing at the creature. If not for the mask and headgear, one would see his nervous, sweat-covered face. This creature had just decimated 2/4 of their entire army with just a few swings of its limbs. Even with the magic-infused cannons making shots when they passed through its defense, they hardly seemed to have slowed it down. Some register of pain did show on its face, but then it was replaced by irritation. Some of his own men were gathered by him, and while that made him feel somewhat safe, he knew that even if they combined their magic they might not be able to take down this creature. But he would damn sure try. He turned to his men and spoke, trying not to sound afraid. Now, while his gaze is directed away from us, attack him with any kind of water spell that you know. Since this monster's made of sand, then that would be the most effective approach. They all gave their approvals while they all pointed their staffs at Naruto's back. Deep blue magic circles appeared at the end of their weapons before vanishing, leaving swirling waves in their place. Though they didn't expect for the beast to stop attack and start to chuckle. You seriously think that I didn't hear you back there? The robed men widened their eyes as the beast turned to them. My hearing's a lot better than you might think. So you want to play hardball, huh? Fine then. Let's play. Naruto brought back his body and lifted his head to the sky, with his mouth wide open. A small little windstorm kicked in from nowhere, catching everyone off guard. Though the origin was unknown, the place of direction it gathered when they all looked was horrifying. It was all swirling into the monster's mouth, making his belly puff out with the extra air, before a sky blue and green magic circle appeared over his mouth before vanishing. Impossible. Another masked man whispered before they charged more of their respective attacks. You guys aren't the only ones with magic tricks. Now fly away, wind rave, air bullet, now! Release your magic. The lead masked man shouted before they all released high concentrated beams of water, before they merged to become a much bigger one. At the same time, Naruto smacked his enlarged stomach before spitting out a large blast of compressed wind. The pressure of the attack became apparent the closer it got to the ground, with some men being forced to the earth while others were blown away. The wind blast and water beam exploded the moment they made contact, though that didn't mean the wind blast was completely vaporized. Even with the combined might of 15 men pooling a good portion of their magic into a single spell, they obviously weren't strong enough to compare to the might of a beast with a ton of the energy. Not only that, thanks to his massive height, his attack was much bigger and more powerful. The remaining force from the air bullet destroyed some of the ground, along with some of the men that was caught in the blast. The large amount of water also raining down on the terrain below didn't serve to aid any of the men, with some slipping on the newly formed patches and puddles of mud. It can use magic too. The burly Rouge leader, who had miraculously survived the terrible onslaught, said. He looked up to Naruto's face. Just what in the world are you? Naruto looked at him and grinned. Who, me? I'm the one-tailed beast. The demon Shikaku. His exclamation had procured whispers from some of the robed men which he heard. The one-tailed beast? This thing is a demon? Where does a beast like this come from? Was it summoned? Do you think that it might be one of Zirif's creations? Naruto rose an eyebrow at the unfamiliar name. Who in the world was this Zirif? He sounded like a wizard. But one that deals in summoning magic? But that couldn't be right, for they said creations, not summons. Naruto's never heard of a mage that had the power or the skill to create a creature that could probably rival his current state in strength. It was too amazing to comprehend. He'll have to look into this later when he has the chance. Naruto winced a little bit as he felt that he was running out of energy to hold the transformation. Just as he thought that air bullet took a good deal out of him, especially considering how much magic he channeled in it to cause this amount of damage. He took out a good deal of their numbers already, but others were still gun-ho. He needed to finish this in this last attack. Bringing back his head and sucking up more air, his belly grew larger once more. He channeled 1/3 of the amount of magic into this attack compared to the first one. No! It's going to do that again. Someone shouted before the lead robe man yelled. Hurry! Get it prepared quick. He and his entourage moved to different locations, trying desperately to get out of the way of the attack. A sky blue and green magic circle appeared over his mouth once more before disappearing. This is it. You're all finished. Wind rave, air bullets. With another smack to the belly, he spat not one but multiple blasts of wind, taking out the remaining squadrons of rogue wizards and mercenaries. More of the land cracked and moved about while the remaining weapons were destroyed. Naruto fell to a knee as he bent over and gave pants of exhaustion. That last attack was really his last one. It was the most amount of magic that he could expend without causing him to transform back. Cool thing about his Uzumaki heritage was that, like his mother, he possessed inhuman amounts and pretty unique magic energy. Anyone else would have dropped the takeover and passed out right then and there, but not him. He looked around as he observed the drastically changed landscape. Trees were uprooted and destroyed in various ways. Those that were somehow still attached to the ground had a good portion of their leaves blown off. The land was littered with bodies. Some being crushed to death, blown to bits by wind, or were unconscious. Mud patches were 1/3 of the soil and grass-covered landscape, and some of the earth was cracked and broken, before being tossed around to a different location. The weapons were smoking broken pieces of scrap. Looks like it's all over. You're right, it is over. Naruto's head whipped to the side as he watched one of those robed men stick his staff into the ground. Small thumping noises could be heard around him, and he realized that 3 of them had performed the same action at his front, back and left side. Over for you, that is. The same man finished before a whirlwind of white sparkling mist slowly formed and started to swarm around the sand spirit. Naruto was too exhausted to try and move, so the best he could do was cover his face trying to see through the mist. But his vision started to blur. Well, what sort of spell is this? I can't keep eyes open. Getting tired, can't unable to support his body, his legs gave out, and he fell forward. This was unfortunate for the guy standing in front of him, for like the others he couldn't see the giant's body in the thick mass of mist. The other robed men thought how unfortunate it was to have lost another member. Especially in a very unorthodox way, but he, like the others, were replaceable. What they were more concerned about was the giant mass that was snoring obnoxiously loud in front of them. The leader, not seeing it as a threat anymore, walked up and poked its head with its staff, unintentionally letting off a spark of magic. This caused the giant's body to glow bright red, making the remaining members jump back before he quickly shrunk in size. In its place, still lying on their late comrade, was a boy. A boy with bright blonde hair, whisker marks, an orange hoodie with a blue shirt underneath, green shorts and some blue sandals. The last thing they noticed was the band with a swirling symbol on his forehead. They all stood there speechless for a moment before one of them walked up and grabbed the still sleeping by the collar of his shirt, and got a good look at his face. You mean this boy, this brat, had been behind this? If only this snot-nosed little punk was awake. Another one walked up and grabbed his shoulder. Before you start mouthing off threats, you need to remember that this brat, he looked around the whole destroyed landscape, just did all of this. If he was still awake, we would be like a good deal of our members here. Though I never would have guessed that what we were fighting was just a child using takeover this entire time. Their leader walked up to them. I see an opportunity here. This boy is going to come with us. I've never witnessed a takeover like that before. It was unnatural, the first one growled. You don't obviously believe that this boy has some sort of connection to Zeref? The leader turned to him. Maybe, maybe not. But even if he doesn't, we still have another prisoner to help the completion of the tower. Even if this boy, or better yet his power, has no connection to the Dark Lord, then the completion of the tower will. It's a win-win situation. The second man nodded. Yeah, a very good plan. We've acquired a good number of people from this village to help in the cause. What's one more? But first he dug into his robe and pulled out a heavy black collar with a red gem embedded into it. He placed it around Naruto's neck, which caused Red Spark to jump around and make the boy wince. To seal off his magic. Now I believe that we should be going. All 3 raised their staffs and created a purple magic circle underneath them. Purple tendrils of energy flowed and swirled around their forms until they vanished from sight completely, heading to another destination. Urza stirred as she heard shouting coming from outside her prison cell. She narrowed her eyes at the only thing that could mean. They must be bringing in a new prisoner, she thought in a bitter mood. The redhead, no less than 9 years of age, got up and stretched her sore muscles, especially her back from sleeping on the cold, hard floor. It had been nearly a year since her and a close friend of hers, a boy named Simon, were kidnapped from their home village and forced into slavery by the Zeref worshippers. They, like all of the others that were here and the ones soon to be brought, were forced from dawn until dusk to construct this wretched tower. The Tower of Heaven. Oh, the irony of that name. Heaven was supposed to be a place for the deserving and the faithful. Yet this tower was being led by the wicked and the spiteful and gave no rest to their always weary workers. Slaves seems like the more appropriate term to use. Urza noticed that the other kids that were in there with her started to awaken because of the yelling heard from outside. They were Sho, Wally, Miliana, Simon and their group leader Jalal. Their only adult friend, an old man named Rob, was looking at the bars of the cell, a rare upset look upon his face. Hey, let me go! Damn jerk! Cried an unfamiliar voice, though he sounded really young. The younger one's eyes lit up. Another kid was coming. They were a little happy since making friends in here, especially with others near their own age, was probably the only things that kept them sane. Of course it was completely terrible that they managed to grab another kid. In fact, it's terrible that anybody was here. But the fact is they just like it when they have people they can easily interact with. You little brat. Get in there with the rest of the trash, a gruff voice shouted before he pushed someone into their cell. Since Rob was the caring person that he went to go greet their new cellmate, who was trying to pick himself up from the ground. Urza couldn't help but look on curiously at the boy herself. He had bright blonde hair which she had never seen before on another person, bright blue eyes, 3 whisker marks on each cheek, a strange collar around his neck, and finally some sort of black cloth around his head with a swirl on the center. The ends of the cloth hung a little past his shoulder blades. Besides that, he wore the same kind of prison clothes that she and all of the others had to wear. When Rob had helped him sit up, he gazed around, taking in his new surroundings. Where in the heck did those masked guys take me? He asked in a slightly angry yet slightly exhausted tone. She couldn't help but notice that he seemed to have been breathing a little bit hard, but it wasn't anything serious. She wondered what he could have been through that made him so exhausted. He just arrived, so he obviously didn't do any kind of labor. Also, his eyes held a fire in them that she couldn't help but respect. She was so focused on him she didn't realize that Rob was explaining where this place was and what was currently happening about their situation. Urza saw her friends walk up to the newcomer and followed. Alright now children, this young man here is Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki. Would you mind introducing yourselves? Jalal walked up to Naruto and held out his hand, which Naruto hesitantly took. Nice to meet you. I'm Jalal Fernandez. Naruto gave a smile to him, sensing that Jalal seemed to be a pretty alright guy. Cool tattoo. Jalal smirked and replied, thanks. Cool headband. Miliana, instead of shaking hands, went up and rubbed Naruto's face, making him step back a little in confusion. I love your whiskers. They remind me of a kitty. I love kitties. Naruto gave a nervous laugh and moved her hand away from his face. Actually, they're fox-like. Not cat-like. Miliana pouted while Naruto's sweat dropped. Foxes? But foxes are dogs, not cats. Cats are the best. Naruto held up his hands so she would calm down. Hey, I happen to like cats too. Miliana looked at him curiously. Really? Naruto nodded, which made Miliana squeal and hug him before she let go. Simon gave Naruto his hand, who returned it. Though Naruto felt a bit uncomfortable under his gaze. My name's Simon. Next, a boy with big eyes, blonde hair and a smile introduced himself. My name's Sho. Hi there. Naruto waved at him before turning to another boy who looked uninterested but gave small smile anyway. I'm Wally. Rob then turned Naruto to face the last member, who he had somehow missed. And this, my boy, is Urza Scarlet. The old man said while Naruto's eyes widened. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. This girl looked almost identical to his mother. Especially with her crimson hair. He couldn't help it as her face flashed in his mind before he started to tear up. He sat down and sobbed a little bit while the people he just met watched him silently, asking what was wrong. He really hated this. Not even 10 minutes of showing up to this god-awful place, and he breaks down in front of the people that are trying to show him some form of hospitality. How can he just make himself look like a weak child? For Urza, she couldn't help but pity the boy in front of her. He may seem to have a tough outer shell, but just like all of them, he was sensitive on the inside. She had no idea why he was just started crying out of nowhere, but it had to have been something serious. Besides, this boy looked to be younger than her anyway, 1 maybe 2 years below her. Mom. Rob patted the boy's back. Your mother? What about your mother? Naruto forced himself to wipe his eyes. I am sorry about that. I must look so weak right now. Rob shook his head. Nonsense. Letting out your emotions doesn't make you weak. It actually means that you've been strong for too long. Coming to terms with your emotions can even build you up to be stronger than you've ever been. Naruto sniffed and looked up at the old man. He couldn't help but think of Hiruzen when he spoke. Really? Rob nodded. Yes, really. Now what is ailing you? Tell us. Naruto looked up at Urza, who was a little confused for the action. Well, it's because my mother passed away last winter, and you almost look like her. Especially with your smooth red hair. Urza was taken aback, not knowing how to respond to his claim. She didn't know how she felt knowing that she had unintentionally made this boy cry because of the similarities between his mother and herself. Though she couldn't help the pang of guilt in her stomach. I am sorry. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable like this. Naruto shook his head. He stood and walked up to her. He noticed that he came up to just about her neck. She didn't seem to be that much older than him, which made him a bit upset. Curse is shorter than average height. Don't worry about it. I mean, yeah, I miss her a lot, but I won't ever forget about her. She'd want me to be happy, so it's alright. Urza smiled and nodded, accepting Naruto's response. He must have had good role models to say something so wise. They both raised hands and shook the others with a smile, though Naruto gave a toothy fox-like grin. They released the handshake while they all sat around each other, seeing no reason to keep standing. So what happened to you, Naruto? Asked Jalal while Sho nodded. Yeah, how did you manage to end up in a place like this? Naruto crossed his arms with slightly downcast eyes and told his new friends his life up to now. They learned that Naruto's father had died 2 years after his birth while fighting a dark mage. His mother had raised Naruto for 6 years until she passed away at the end of his 8th year, last winter. His headband used to be his mother's, and it was the last memento of her he had. After he was orphaned, he's lived with his village's leader for a while before he was left at the orphanage. It was only yesterday when the Zeref worshippers with hired help came and attacked the village, where he and others were taken in the aftermath, though he left out the part about him single-handedly taking out a good portion of their forces. He wanted to save that tale for later, though Naruto didn't seem to let anything bad get to him. He was a happy kid and he got along easily with the others. Thanks to his perky attitude, he managed to bring some light into the lives of the other depressed slaves he came across. A week after he'd arrived, Rob was telling Urza stories of magic, wizards and guilds that existed throughout the entire world. Naruto was sitting next to Urza, who Urza suggested that he listen along as well. She turned to him and gave a bright smile. Wow, magic sounds so incredible, doesn't it, Naruto? I wish that I could use it. Naruto grinned at Urza. Like some of the others, he's grown to acknowledge her as his sister. He's actually taken to calling her Big Sis sometimes, but he couldn't help but feel protective of her. He figured that it was because she looked so much like his mother and in turn insisted to her that she was family. If there's one thing Naruto always cared about, it was friends and family. Don't worry about it, Urza. I know that you'll be able to use magic someday. Urza appreciated the comment. Really? You think so? Naruto nodded. You bet I do. Besides, I can use magic myself. Urza and Rob were a bit shocked to hear that their new companion was a wizard. She was instantly in his face, surprising Naruto, making him fall on his behind. Really? You can use magic? She asked in an excited tone, with a hint of curiosity. Naruto sat back up. Well, yeah. My mom taught me. It's a special type of magic that was passed down through her family bloodline for generations. Well, that's what she told me anyway. I was able to use it pretty good before. I mean, I even used it to help fight off the guys that were attacking my village, but those stupid robed guys knocked me out with a powerful sleep spell. When I woke up, I saw that I had this collar on me and I haven't been able to use any magic. It sucks. Rob took a closer look to the heavy collar around Naruto's neck. He frowned, which Naruto didn't like. What's with that look? Grandpa Rob? Rob looked at the blonde and sighed. I was just looking over at the type of collar that they placed on you. It's crude and basic, but it was effective enough to block your magic. Naruto tugged at it. Any idea on how to get it off? Rob nodded. I can only think of two ways. You will either need the key to the lock to remove it or push a high enough concentration of magic into both sides of it. Rob sighed. But this place has taken its toll on me. I lack the necessary amount of magic to remove it myself. If you had arrived years ago, then this would have been a simple job. I just haven't been getting the right amount of nutrition and my body been through too much abuse. Naruto tilted his head a bit. So you're saying that if I can't get the key, then I should get hit by a spell? Urza and Rob's sweat dropped at the ridiculous accusation he spoke. Who in their right mind would purposely let themselves get hit by a magic attack? Not necessarily. You'll just have to wait until the opportunity presents itself. Naruto and Urza sighed, but for different reason. Naruto wanted the collar to come off, obviously, and would literally do anything to make it happen. Urza wanted to see some real magic. It sounded so mystical and unknown, though she was willing to wait until she got her chance to see it. She was really curious about the kind of magic that Naruto uses. Hey Naruto, you'll show me your magic when you get the chance, right? Naruto nodded. Yeah, I promise I will. Trust me, it'll blow you away. She smiled. Alright then. I'll hold you to it. I hope sister's going to be alright. Sho said, worried for Urza. Earlier, the kids had come up with a plan to try and escape the tower, but the cultists had managed to catch them in the act. Thinking that Urza was the one who came up with the plan, they had taken her away to be tortured. Jalal had snuck away from the cell to go find her, but he turned up missing as well. Now they were all worried for both of their safety. Simon looked at Rob. Grandpa Rob, you came back from punishment alive. Do you think that she'll be okay? He asked, full of concern. Rob didn't seem worried. I'm sure she's going to be fine. Urza is a tough girl. They can torture her all day and night, but they'll never be able to take her soul away from her. Simon rose an eyebrow. What do you mean by that? Get in! One of the slave drivers yelled. They turned and saw Urza on her knees, covered in bandages, with some over her right eye and looking really worn out and dirty. Even through the dim light they could all make out the bruises she had. Big sis/sister. Naruto and Sho exclaimed as they walked up to see if she was alright. Urza, wait a minute, where's Jalal? Simon questioned as another slave driver walked in with a wheelbarrow of digging tools. Rob shook his head. Don't upset her anymore. We should be happy that she came back to us alive. Sho started to cry while Naruto went over to him and held his arm for reassurance. Simon faced Rob with more concern. But Grandpa, I can only assume that they've chosen to keep him in her place. Naruto turned to Rob as well and grew angry. What? Now Jalal's being tortured. But what's going to happen to him? Naruto looked to Urza and helped her to her feet. She looked so defeated, which really grated at Naruto's core. If only this damn collar could be taken off. No one harms his family. Whoever did will slowly but surely writhe in absolute agony in any shape or form that he can imagine. He didn't need to look under the bandages to see that Urza had lost her right eye, and it was for no damn reason. She had nothing to do with the escape plan at all. If she's like this, then there's a good chance Jalal will. Sho started to cry even harder. I can't take it. He ran to Rob and hugged him tightly. I can't take it anymore. The one who brought in the digging tools looked at Sho in irritation. Quit crying, kid. Simon raised his arms a bit towards him. Calm down, Sho, he said. Rob rubbed the boy's back. There's no need to cry. Everything's going to work out just fine. The guard who brought in Urza raised his staff and slammed the end of it into the ground. Shut it, you little brat. Sho cried even harder. Leave me alone. In that moment Urza broke from Naruto's grip and grabbed a digging tool and aimed her sights on the guards. They couldn't react fast enough as Urza plowed through them with strength that a girl her size shouldn't be capable of. The other prisoners saw the guards and a mass of dust fly out from their open cell, with Urza gaining a look of absolute rage and determination in her eye. "What are you doing? What's gotten into you?" Simon asked, never seeing the girl like this. Naruto smirked. "I don't know, but I like it." Urza turned to them and all of the prisoners that were outside. "Find a weapon. We can't escape and they're not gonna set us free, so if we want out of here we have to fight. For our lives. For our freedom." All the prisoners gave yells of agreement, and followed the girl's declaration. Prisoners who were freed by the children or others took up their own weapons and helped in the mass rebellion. As for Naruto, when he was about to leave to go assist in the assault, he noticed a set of keys on one of the unconscious guards' waists. Remembering Rob's words, he picked them up and looked for the key that would fit into his collar, even placing his other finger to the keyhole to map out the shape in his mind. When he thought he found the right key, he hopefully placed it in the keyhole and twisted. With a resounding click, the latch opened and the collar fell to the side. Naruto couldn't help but smile as he felt his core light up in warmth thanks to his magic energy circulating again. He gained the eyes he has when he's in his Shikaku form. "Oh, you guys are going to hate this. Time for some epic payback. Time to go find some cultists." The rebellion went well into the second day, with some of the prisoners obtaining actual weapons. Urza herself was outfitted in metal chest armor, a wooden and steel shield that was in her size on her left arm, and a sword in her right. Just as they were about to breach through the main entrance, they faced their last and greatest trial. No one was prepared for the explosion that had blown away some of the prisoners. "Look! Up there!" cried Miliana as pointed above them, showing dozens of flying demonic-looking creatures. "Magic soldiers!" Sho cried. The magic soldiers opened their mouths before red-orange magic circles appeared. They all flashed before multiple blasts of energy struck the ground, while some were caught in it. They started to retreat, but Urza stood firm. She tried to get the others to stay, but their fear of dying overcame their desire to be free. She was knocked down by one of the prisoners, making her drop her sword. She turned to see the magic soldiers prepared to blast her to oblivion, while her friends called out to her. But she closed her eyes, waiting for the end. A second before the spells were fired, everyone heard a cry of "Sand Shield." Another explosion was created as the spells were fired and made contact with whatever they hit. Realizing that she felt completely okay, Urza opened her eyes and saw two things. Rob's back with his orange tattoo prominent. The man was standing in front of her with his arms open. She assumed that he was going to take the blast for her, but then she saw a thick wall of sand that was surrounding them both. Rob looked at her with as much confusion on his face. They both turned before having to look up at the new being that was standing near them. It looked to be a giant tanuki made out of sand. It had a thick, long, bushy tail with blue markings covering its body, with the ears being the same color. It had a small black nose, yellow eyes with a four-pointed star, and black dots surrounding it. The scara was black. Its hands and feet were covered in razor-sharp claws, and it had a jaw full of sharp teeth. They all looked to be able to grind through steel, even though they were made of sand. The slaves looked as if they were going to panic again, but the next move the beast made calmed their nerves. Sand Shuriken. With a big sweep of its right arm, multiple tennis ball-sized clumps of sand raced at the magic soldiers and made terribly loud and hard impacts, destroying him in the process. Urza stared up at the creature in wonder instead of fright, wondering where it came from, but was thankful nonetheless. Thank you for that, whoever you are," she said in a small voice she couldn't help but make. The large tanuki looked down at her and smiled. Even though she figured that this beast wouldn't hurt her because of those sharp teeth, that smile made her feel really uneasy. Then it spoke in a rumbling voice. "No problem, Urza, and I'd do it again." Her and Rob looked at each other before looking at the monster. "You know my name?" The monster nodded. "Of course. Why wouldn't I? I mean, you are my big sis after all." Urza and Rob gasped. There was only one person that called Urza that. "And Naruto?" she asked hopefully. "I promised you, didn't I? This is my magic power. I'm a takeover mage. This is the tailed beast takeover level 1, Shikaku." The other kids were still looking up at Naruto in wonder along with Rob. The kids didn't know that magic had so many different forms and properties. To them, Naruto looked so cool right now. For Rob, he had never witnessed a takeover like this. Of course, there is no set forms or specific types that takeover mages can turn into. Every takeover was different, but Naruto's was completely different. He gave a smile. An old man, and he still had much to learn about magic. The former slaves started to cheer when they realized that the beast was one of them and was helping to take out the opposition. Though since the magic soldiers have been wiped clean, the magic wielders themselves chose to arrive. They fired multiple spells haphazardly into the rebels. It was unfortunate that Simon had been blindsided with a spell to the face, making his friends turn to him in concern. Urza looked to Simon before turning to the magic wielders in complete anger. Naruto, still in his Shikaku form, did the same. "How dare you! I'm tired of you hurting my friends!" she screamed as a massive pink magic circle appeared under her while Naruto drew air into his body, a sky blue and green magic circle appearing over his mouth for a few seconds. Urza's magic affected the weapons and discarded tools around her. They lifted in the air before flying into the group, killing or knocking out some of them. Now it's my turn. Wind Rave. Air Bullet. Smacking his enlarged belly, he fired a massive compressed air bullet at their opponents, intentionally and successfully killing the remaining ones. Urza looked up at Naruto and nodded with a smile, while he gave her a huge thumbs up thanks to Naruto's sand and wind attacks and Urza's blades. They easily tore through the cultists and made it to the docks. The now free prisoners got onto the ships and got ready to leave this terrible place forever. Rob got on a ship with the elderly, and the other kids got on the one with the other children. But Urza didn't even board the ship with her friends. She took off heading back into the tower. Rob noticed and called out to her while his ship started to leave. Urza! Stop, what are you doing? It's Jalal. He's still in there somewhere. I need to go find him. She called back. The fairy tale wizard didn't seem to approve. There was no telling that Jalal might have even been alive, but don't worry, Grandpa Rob. I'll make sure to get us both back to the ships before they leave. I hope to see you again someday. With that, she ran back into the tower to the dungeon where the prisoners used to be tortured. It was the last place that she didn't manage to look. Unknown to her or anyone else, a sliver of sand followed after the girl. Naruto, in a smaller 4-foot form of Shikaku, grumbled as he tried to find where Urza had run off to. Since he was trying to be sneaky and pass by everybody in the form of sand, he had lost sight of Urza, who had ran ahead. Come on, big sis, where are you? The sound of rumbling and something being destroyed caught his attention. Taking that as a sign, he headed in that direction, using his stretchy sandy arms and tail to swing through the broken interior. As he reached the giant room where the noise came from, he noticed Jalal standing on a scaffold, hand outstretched forming a purple magic circle, while Urza was covered in a purple shroud with some sort of red magic bindings on her. Quickly getting over the aspect of Jalal knowing magic, all Naruto registered was that he was hurting her. Thanks to his sensitive hearing, he heard Urza's whimpers and Jalal trying to feed her some bullshit about true freedom, only found by the completion of this tower, and something having to do with Zirif. Naruto's curious side still wanted to know the significance behind that name, but that would have to wait for later. He saw Jalal prepare a purple blast of energy, and was about to attack Urza with it, who seemed to be on the verge of unconsciousness. Stretching his arms, grasping two large pillars of wood at his right and left sides, Naruto slingshot at himself between them, right before Jalal threw the blast. Everything went black afterwards. Urza slowly opened her lone eye as she tried to shake the dizziness out of her head. She heard the sound of crashing waves and the feel of sand underneath her. The sand made her remember Shikaku's sand, and she snapped her eye open quickly. She looked to see Naruto lying on his back, right near her. He had a scar on the center of his chest. Even though she was nearly unconscious, she recalled something jumping in the way of Jalal's attack. It must have been his Tanuki's sandy body that stopped him from getting any more serious injuries. Naruto's eyelids shook a bit as he opened them to stare at Urza. She gasped as he woke up. Naruto, you saved me, thank you, she said tearfully. Naruto sat up and smiled. Of course I did. You're my big sis. Besides, I said that I would do it again, didn't I? Tears started to gather in her eye. Why did all of this had to happen? We were all going to leave. I thought that we would all stay together. Her arms started to shake while her tears started to fall. Naruto gave her a pitying look. We were a family, but then Jalal, what happened to him? Why was he so cruel? Naruto felt helpless as his big sister was crying and was more broken than when she was brought back to them by the Siltists. He didn't know the answer for that, obviously. He arrived at the last minute to save Urza. She was the one who spoke to Jalal last. Naruto knew that Jalal was a nice person, but something wasn't right. He sensed a malevolent force that was inside of him, and whatever it was wasn't natural. It was completely foul in every sense of the word. Something like that could warp anyone's mind. Naruto could only hope that the other kids and everyone else had made it out okay. Focusing his attention back to Urza, who had fallen to her hands and knees in sadness, he could only think of one thing to do as to help calm her down. Urza looked up when she saw a red flash in her vision. She momentarily stopped crying at the sight of a 1-foot chibi Shikaku, 5, standing in front of her. Naruto waddled up to her down form and lifted up his short arms. Urza smiled at the cute sight before she bent down and pulled the tiny sand spirit into her arms and hugged him tight. Don't cry anymore, Urza. Everything's going to be okay. Really, it will. She sniffed before she stood up, still holding the mini-tailed beast tight. Thank you, Naruto. Naruto pulled his face away from her neck and grinned at her. Urza smiled herself, especially since she didn't find the smile nearly as scary anymore. It's no problem. You're my sister. It's my job as your little brother to make you happy. She nodded at him gratefully. She was glad that he was here with her. Of course, Urza was still very upset at what had happened, but Naruto did a great job at reassuring her that everything will work out in the future. She turned him around in her arms, making Naruto face forward. He sat on her right arm, while her left one was covering his chest. His own arms hung over it. Come on, let's get going, Naruto. Naruto looked up at her confused. But where are we going to go? Urza started to walk. We're going to find somewhere to put all of this behind us. I decided that we'll go to the place that Grandpa Rob told us about in his stories. The guild called Fairy Tale in the city of Magnolia. Naruto nodded as he remembered the stories too. Everyone was supposedly treated like family at that guild. It was also supposed to be filled with very powerful wizards. He couldn't wait to meet them. Alright then. Lead the way, Big Sis. Chapter 1, Meeting the Monster, July 9th, X784, Magnolia Town. A city with a population of over 60,000. It is also a merchant city that has been prosperous in magic since the ancient era. Such reputation was supported by the fact that the town houses the strongest guild in all of Fiori. It goes by the name of Fairy Tale, but the guild wasn't just known for its strength. It values compassion and friendship above all else. Anyone that's part of the Fairy Tale Guild immediately become a part of an ever-growing family that's willing to go the extra mile for any one of its members. Though the constant fights that break out on daily occurrences can make someone else, who's not used to the guild's unusual behavior, think otherwise. But even those happen out of good sport most of the time. Though today there wasn't much of a happy mood throughout the building, everyone was currently tense, and the feeling increased with each passing second. The reason for this is because 4 of their members were in potential and grave danger. These members were Natsu Drang Neil, a fire wizard and the fire dragon slayer, Grateful Buster, an ice make wizard, Lucy Hartfilia, a celestial spirit wizard, finally Happy, a little talking blue cat that's able to grow wings. He was also Natsu's longtime companion and best friend. None of the Fairy Tale members were more worried than its leader, a man named Makarov Dreyer. He is an extremely short, elderly man. He has black eyes and is growing bald with only the outer rims of his head containing white hair. He also has a thick white mustache. He was dressed in a casual manner which consists of a white shirt with black Fairy Tale stamp in the middle which covered by an orange hoodie. His attire was completed with matching orange shorts and an orange and blue stripes designed jester hat. He was currently pacing around the wooden floor with his hands behind his back, with a look of irritation. He had sent Gray to go collect Natsu, Lucy and Happy and bring them back home. Now it's been 7 hours since then. It was more than obvious that Gray had gone along with them or taken against his will. Natsu would have been the only one capable of that. Still, even if that were the case, he still could have sent a message back. Either by lacrima or by letter. The problem? They were currently on a mission that was far beyond their level. An S-class job specifically. Missions that were only for the strongest members of the guild, who were ranked S-class wizards themselves. Currently only 6 people out of the dozens in the guild were ranked that high. Master, being all worked up like that isn't good for your health. I know this is bad, but you should try to calm down, said Mira Jane, or Mira as she's mostly called. She is a slim young woman of below average height. She has long, white hair which curls slightly at the ends, with 2 bangs framing her face and reaching down to her chest. Her hairstyle's most distinctive trait is a short, upward ponytail obtained by gathering and tying the hair covering her forehead. Her attire is a sleeveless, ankle-length maroon dress with a pleated skirt. The chest is adorned by a large, pink bow, and similarly colored trimmings frame the rather ample neckline, acting as straps, and circle around the waist. Mary Jane also wears high-heeled shoes that match her dress, and accessorizes with a small chain necklace with a blue oval gem attached to it, and a bracelet made of white flowers circling her right wrist. I don't believe that's possible, Mary Jane. If anything, I'm getting more and more worked up by the hour. Who knows what could have happened to them? He stopped pacing and narrowed his eyes a bit. For all I know, they could be dead right now. How could those brats be so foolish? Mary Jane gave the master a small sympathetic look. I know you're worried sick about them. We all are, and I agree that this is very bad. I mean, even after what I told Lucy about the dangers of S-class missions, she went on one anyway. Makarov sighed. She was probably talked into it by Natsu and Happy. Can't say I'm surprised. When those 2 want to do something, they go out and do it, but this is completely unacceptable, he declared while he heard a cough to his left. The source was from one of the tables to his left, and sitting there was the only smoker in the guild, Wakaba Mine. His brown hair was kept in an ostentatious pompadour-like style that protrudes frontwards from the top of his head in a large, curly and fluffy tuft. His eyes were currently closed at the moment. He took out his pipe and let out a steady stream of smoke. Sitting across from him was his closet comrade, Macau Conbolt. Macau had slicked back dark blue hair. He has linear dark eyebrows, dark eyes, and a prominent nose with a flat, rectangular front. The lower part of his face is covered in quite a large amount of stubble, which includes a thin mustache. So what's the plan now? I mean, Laxus isn't going to take time out of his day to go and get them back, and Gray, well, sorry to say, but he was unreliable from the get-go. We should have known that he wouldn't be much help. Mira turned to him. Well, you don't have to make it seem like he was useless. I'm sure he tried his hardest. Wakaba turned his head. I'm sure his hardest was just getting in a fight with Natsu. But we all know that he's gone with them to Galena Island. Makarov rubbed his forehead. Well, the only plan of action that I can think of is sending Urza to go after them. She's the only one we have left that's strong enough to get the job done. Unfortunately, she stepped out for the moment, so we have no choice but to wait. Macau leaned a bit back in his seat. And how is that going to take? Natsu and the others could have already arrived at the island by now, and they get closer and closer to danger the more we wait. Master, you should just force Laxus to go. You're not only his grandfather, but you're both the guild master, and possibly stronger than Laxus as well. Makarov closed his eyes and shook his head. No, that won't work. No matter what I try I can never get through to that boy, and even though I'm powerful I'm also old. He's both a lot younger and faster than me. My patience with him has worn so thin I don't believe that I can rely on him for much of anything these days. He sighed. He honestly wished that he didn't think of the man that way. He was still his grandson after all, and he cared for him deeply, but that all changed when a teenage Laxus discovered that his father's been banned from the guild, and that alone made him lose respect for Makarov. Even when the old man tried to explain that his son had compromised their guild, Laxus wasn't having any of it, and became rebellious afterwards. Whatever happened to that sweet little boy that used to acknowledge me in high regard so much? The old man thought before shaking his head and forgetting about it. Thinking about the past wasn't going to change the current Laxus. He could only wait to see what time had to tell. A few seconds in afterthought the door opened up, making all of those currently present in the building turn to it. The slight clunking sound of metal was made with every footstep that was taken as they made their way inside. This person was Urza Scarlet. Completely grown into a battle-hardened and full-fledged woman, compared to her childhood days. She was now 19 years of age. Her scarlet hair had reached all the way down her back, while 2 long strands hung past her face, and she had a right eye again. She was wearing a set of armor, her Heart Crew's armor to be exact. She wore a blue skit, black boots that are a little under her knees, and if you look closely you could see her blue fairy tale tattoo under her armor on the middle of her upper left forearm. Urza gazed around the room with her usual neutral expression and could sense the looming tension. Well, guess who it is? Just the girl we were looking for, Wakava said, making Urza turn to him. She left the door opened as she walked a bit more inward. What do you mean? Am I needed for something? She asked. Makarov walked up to Urza as she looked down to him. Master, she addressed. Urza, I'm afraid that something terrible has happened. In fact, it's so terrible that you're possibly the only one that can assist in the matter, he stated. Urza slightly rose an eyebrow. What seems to be the problem? She glanced around the guild hall before noticing something off. And where are Natsu, Happy, Gray and Lucy? Have they taken a job while I was away? Her sharp eyes caught how everyone stiffened a bit at her analysis. The tension in the hall got a little heavier, and she slowly started to come to the realization that those 4 were centered around it somehow. She narrowed her eyes. What happened? She asked, looking around the room, wanting an immediate answer. Mara stepped forward a bit while Urza shifted her eyes to the white-haired girl. Actually, that's just it, Urza. See Natsu and the others, they've stolen a job from the 2nd floor and have taken on an S-class quest. Urza gave a huge gasp as her eyes went completely wide. She blinked before taking a step to Makarov. What? Is that true, Master? Have they really? She asked him for complete confirmation. The short man gave a solid nod. I'm afraid so, Urza. Apparently Happy came to the guild last night and stole the mission for removing the curse from Galuna Island. Afterwards he, Natsu and Lucy left the next day. I sent Gray to go fetch them, but that was hours ago, so I assumed that he went with them. Whether he agreed to go or not makes no difference. I know that he'll just help them along the way in the end of it all. That's why we need you for this mission, Urza. Urza closed her eyes and balled up a fist. A small smirk adorned her face. I assure you, Master, I will go and make sure they see the error of this transgression. Her right eyebrow started to twitch as her fist shook. The others in the room's sweat dropped and moved back a bit in case she was going to have one of her anger explosions. How dare they break the rules to the guild like that? Our rules are sacred, and those who just trample over them deserve no form of mercy, even if they are comrades of fairy tale. Yes, I feel the exact same way you do, Urza, Makarov said, getting Urza's attention on him again. Because of this, I've decided that once you bring them back I'm going to have to punish them with that task. Everyone in the guild either gasped or nearly lost their lunch. Wakaba was coughing up a good portion of smoke, and even Urza nearly lost her footing. They all knew what that fully entailed. They've all either witnessed, heard of, or worst of all experienced Makarov's most severe punishment. None of them could even form the words as to describe it. Macau slapped his head. Ah, geez. I feel so sorry for those guys. Now a tiny part of me hopes that they don't come back to the guild for their own sake. Preaching the choir on that one. Wakaba agreed. Urza calmed down her emotions and focused. Don't worry, Master. They'll be brought back safe and sound. Makarov closed his eyes with a sigh. That reassures me, actually. I know that I can place all of my trust in you, Urza. Though I still didn't wish that you were the only one I could send, but it seems that it can't be avoided. At hearing this, Urza closed her own eyes and crossed her arms. A genuine smirk was on her face, unlike her last irritated one. Makarov adopted a confused look at Urza's mood change. Actually, Master, I should have you know that I came across one more of our S-class wizards from a returning job. He stayed back in the city to greet a few people, but he should be arriving back at the guild any second now. What? Makarov exclaimed, as well as some others in the room. The members showed their shock by the looks on their faces. One of their S-class wizards were returning? What perfect timing! Right when they needed their strongest members the most. They couldn't help but consider it a lucky break, but the question remained on who was the returning mage. By Urza's description, they were male and were returning from a quest. Wait a minute, so which one is it, Urza? Elfman, Mirajane's little brother asked. Elfman is a large, muscular man with tan-colored skin, whose height causes him to tower over most of his fellow guild members. His long white hair is kept styled upwards in long, wavy spikes, his dark eyes possess no visible eyebrows and his rectangular, elongated face has a stitched scar running down its right side, crossing his right eye. His black fairy tale stamp is located on the left part of his neck. Elfman's attire consists of a dark blue jacket with purplish blue innards, held closed on the front by a line of large buttons, with similar buttons on the sleeves back and the zip located on the high collar left open. The back of his jacket is adorned by large, light kanjis which read the greatest, and the jacket itself seems to be worn over a light red shirt, sometimes seemingly replaced by a shirt covered in many vertical lines. Elfman's outfit is completed by loose pants matching his jacket, held up by a simple belt, and traditional Japanese geta sandals held in place by bands colored the same as his jacket's innards. Well, why don't you try and guess? Urza said, not giving them any straight answers. Mara Jane put a finger to her chin. Well, I don't think that it can be guild arts. We would have been alerted of the city rearrangement above all else. You know how he can be, she finished with a small laugh. Wakaba puffed out some more smoke. And we all know for a fact that it can't be Laxus. That stubborn fool isn't interested in helping out anyone these days. Besides, he just left for a job. No matter how strong, he's not good enough to finish a job that quickly. Maybe Mistigan? Another person suggested, but Mikau shook his head. No way. He always goes on quests by himself, and we'd be put to sleep by now. So that only leaves Mikau's eyes shot open at the last contender. Wait, Urza, are you saying that he's... Urza kept her smirk, which got a bit bigger, at the sound of approaching footsteps made their way to the door. Some of the guild members stood up in eagerness, as the guy Urza mentioned walked inside. This person was 5'9" and had tan skin. He wore a white short-sleeved button shirt with the first 3 buttons undone ending at the middle. His Tone's muscular chest was shown underneath. Around his neck resting at the top of his chest was a necklace with a small green gem on it. He wore black loose pants that had an orange thin sash tied around the waist to keep them up. Over his shirt was a black cloak-like jacket, with the inside being white. The collar extended upwards and the sleeves were rolled up to his elbows. He wore an orange bag on his back tied across his chest by a thin rope. On his feet were black open-toed sandals that went up to his ankles. He wore a headband with 2-foot-long tails at the end. On the front was an orange spiral design. Finally, his most distinguishable features were his spiky bright blonde hair, with 4 bangs hanging over his headband, light blue eyes and 3 whisker marks on each cheek. His fairy tale emblem was colored dark orange and stamped on the front of his right hand. This is Naruto Uzumaki, 18 years of age and a top-tier S-class wizard of fairy tale as well. 1. Naruto. Everyone else either shouted or gasped. Naruto raised an arm to wave and smiled. Hey guys. I'm back. How long has it been? A good few months? No one responded as most of them got up from their seats and rushed to greet the blonde who was having a hard time keeping track of everyone hounding him, though he would be lying if he said he didn't enjoy the attention. Even Makarov was feeling elated to see the young takeover mage once again. Even though it was never dull around the guild, Naruto was capable of making everything 10 times better than usual. He's also been a big help to the guild, and that wasn't just about the difficult jobs he took, but he even changed the lives of some of the members too, and that's for the better, of course. Yo, Naruto. It's great to see you again. Naruto, how did your job go? You completed it? Don't be dumb, of course he did. You don't even need to question it. Between you and guild arts, I'm kinda glad you showed up first. At least you don't keep breaking things. Naruto looked around the group of people surrounding him. He couldn't respond to all of their comments and questions all at the same time, and it was starting to become a bit overwhelming. Plus they kept coming closer and closer, and he couldn't help but start to feel smothered. He was going to try and say something to get them to cease, but Urza was a step ahead of him. A sword came from nowhere and stuck itself in a space where no one was standing, but it had the desired effect. The crowd stopped immediately and turned to Urza, who was giving the group a glare, which was kin to that of a demon's. All of you are starting to annoy me with that constant shouting. I know we're all glad that Naruto has returned, but that's no reason to bombard him like this. Anything you wish to say can be said later. Is that understood? In an instant the people were standing a good amount of feet away and looked a little pale around the edges. The majority nodded before quickly taking their previous seats, avoiding any possible eye contact with Urza. Naruto sighed before he grabbed the embedded sword and pulled it from the wooden floor. He kept holding it in a reverse grip and walked to the redhead. Thanks for the save. It was getting kinda hard to breathe in all that. Naruto joked before handing Urza the sword. She took it back and it vanished in a yellow light. Just getting back and you're already getting into problems, she said while Naruto scratched his cheek. I wouldn't actually say problem. I mean, I've been gone for a while on that S-class mission, so I get it if the guys miss me. I mean, you miss me, right? Urza shrugged. Maybe a little bit. Naruto's head dropped at that. Only a little? That's cold, Urza. Weren't you at least the slightest bit worried for me? A bit is better than nothing, and honestly I can't say that I was. You've gone on dozens of S-class missions over the years by yourself, and you always complete them, without extreme effort. Even if this is the longest you've been gone from the guild, I still wasn't worried in the slightest. She responded. Mira closed her eyes and gave a pitying smile. She's right, Naruto. I mean, Guild Arts goes on even longer quests than either you, Urza, Mystigan, or even Laxus when he decides to actually take a request. If you compare the time you were away to the amount of time Guild Arts is usually gone, then 4 months isn't really that long. While Naruto tried to speak, but his head drooped down, along with his arms. Are you serious? So no one was concerned for me at all? He said in a depressed sigh, making Mira Jane's sweat drop at his attitude. Naruto lifted his head when he felt someone patting his leg. It was Makarov, who was giving him a big smile. If it's any consolation, I always worry about my children whenever they go off on quests. Especially when they go by themselves. Anything can happen, you know. Naruto brightened up a bit and gave his own smile. Thanks, old man. At least someone cares. Wakaba smiled and waved to him. Hey, don't be like that, kid. We all care. That greeting was more than enough to show it, right? Elfman grinned and made a fist. That's right. You're one of the manliest guys I've ever known. I especially knew you could handle whatever came your way. Mikao put down a mug of beer he had been drinking. It's just that we all know you're more than capable of taking care of yourself is all. You're one of the strongest mages that any of us know. Their words made Naruto even happier, and he gave a big toothy grin to show for it. Ah, thanks guys. That cheered me right up. He said in his usual enthusiastic tone. Actually, Naruto, it's a very good thing you're here. We come across a certain recent dilemma, and no one else here can take care of it besides yourself and Urza, seeing as you're both the only ones here powerful enough or available to handle it. Makarov said, getting back into his serious demeanor. Naruto blinked before looking at the old man with a near-tired expression. Oh, come on, old man. I just got back home and you're sending out already? Can't whatever this thing is wait until tomorrow or something? He complained, but Makarov shook his head as a negative. No, it can't. Listen, this is an incredibly urgent matter, and it needs to be taken care of immediately. It involves Natsu, Happy, Gray, and a newcomer to our guild by the name of Lucy. Naruto opened his eyes to that before he looked all around the guild as if searching for something. Now that you mention it, the guild is pretty quiet. I mean, I half expected Natsu to come out of nowhere as demand me to fight him and all that, or for him and Gray to have already been fighting. So you're saying that they're somewhere else and this Lucy girl is with them too? What happened? Elfman crossed his arms and gave a humph. You're not gonna believe this, but yesterday night Happy flew into the guild and stole a job from the second floor. He then took it to Natsu and Lucy and they left on the mission. Naruto turned to him completely in shock. Say what? No way. How dumb can they be? I don't know about this Lucy person, but those two have really gone off the deep end this time. And Gray went with them too. Actually, Gray left hours ago to try and bring them back, but he never returned. Something must have happened to have made him go along with them, Mira said in his defense, but she knew it was pretty much pointless to do so. Naruto narrowed his eyes. What mission was it? He basically demanded. Urza spoke up. It was the toughest one yet. To lift the curse from Galuna Island. Naruto punched his right fist into his left hand in irritation. He gave a small but a literal beast-like growl which alerted the others that he was about as angry as Urza was, and that's saying something. Those stupid little idiots. What the hell were Natsu and Happy thinking? They don't even know that their lives are at stake right now. Gray has more common sense than that. I know he wouldn't go with them on purpose, so they must have taken him with them. Makarov sighed and walked over to the bar. He jumped up to the table and sat on it with his legs crossed. I came to that conclusion as well, but he still should have sent some sort of message to alert us about the situation. How far along are they? Naruto asked, his happy demeanor gone. Kinda hard to be after hearing this kind of news. They've left earlier today. About a 7-hour head start ahead of us. This is why you both need to leave immediately. Makarov said, eyeing them both. Also, don't be afraid to show them your displeasure for breaking one of the rules of the guild. They will be punished greatly for this when they return. Red aura surrounded Naruto and Urza as they cracked their knuckles and their eyes twitched. Trust us, master. We'll make sure that they understand the severity of this crime, Urza declared. I feel the exact same, Naruto agreed. I hope Natsu's ready for that beatdown that he's kept asking me for. Not to mention I have business to discuss with Happy anyway. This was something that scared the others incredibly. Whenever one of them got truly angry, one would rather choose to be near a tornado among anything else. But both of them at the same time? That could very much spell total annihilation for whatever was in their path, no matter who or what it is. 2. Some of them have even had the chance to see what happens when they both go on a rampage together. They had nightmares about that day for a good few weeks. One could only imagine the kind of terror that comes from such a viewing. When these two spread that kind of fear to those there to witness it, they live up to the namesake that Mira, somewhere along the line, had branded them with. The Dos Demonios 3. Makarov nodded before staring at them again. That's good. You'll both be able to get to Galuna Island from Harjan. I believe you two both remember the island's location? Urza nodded while Naruto cupped his chin and closed his eyes and thought. Let's see, I think it was? A few question marks were visible over his head while Makarov just sighed and gripped the bridge of his nose. Well, I should have expected that you wouldn't remember, Naruto. Can't say that I'm surprised. Naruto snapped out of his thoughts and glared at the old man with a fist. Hey, what does that mean? Makarov released his nose and waved his hand. It doesn't matter. At least Erza knows where it is, so you both should be able to travel there a lot faster and cut down on time. Especially because you're here now, Naruto. Seeing Naruto's confused expression, he gave another bigger sigh. What I mean is you can use your takeover magic to cross the ocean. Oh. Yeah, right. Naruto said with a snap of his fingers. His hand went down as a thought passed through his mind. But why do I have to swim us across? Couldn't we take a boat there too? Not possible. Makarov immediately responded. Anyone who's heard of that place, which is a great lot, won't even consider sailing in the same direction of the island for fear of being cursed themselves. It'll just be a waste of time, so to save any amount that we have, it would be better for you to transform instead, Naruto. Oh, I get it. Don't worry, I'll get us both there faster than any boat could, he assured with confidence. Erza looked to Naruto, catching his attention. Let's get going then. We've spent enough time just standing around here. Yeah, I hear ya, let's head to the train station, he said with a lazy sweep of his hand. Erza started to head out with Naruto following right behind her. This time they made sure to close the door behind them. As they made their way, Naruto decided to open up with some conversation. So how have things been going since I was gone? Anything interesting happened lately? Erza glanced over to him. I suppose so, yes. It's a shame that you had to miss out on all of the action. Naruto got a little excited at what adventures she or any of the others had went on, though he couldn't help but feel a bit upset to have been left out. Still, his curiosity outweighed his upset mood. So you mind filling me in on everything? I want to know, he said, his voice filled with curiosity. Erza looked at him. Well, you're so eager to know, then fine. Naruto smiled brightly. Awesome. Erza then went into full detail about the endeavors that her, Natsu and Happy, Gray, and finally that new recruit Lucy had recently experienced. Erza explained how upon her return from her own S-class quest she had overheard rumors during her travels and enlisted their help to take care of it, since Makarov was nowhere to be found at the time. The Dark Guild Eisenwald had set out to recover a demonic weapon of unspeakable power, a flute that was created by the ancient black mage Seraph. Those that are unlucky enough to hear its music are to perish in an instant. They were being led by Aragorn the Reaper. Naruto held out a hand to Erza. Wait, hold up a sec. Aragorn? Are you serious? Erza smirked and gave a humph. That's right. I remember that you also encountered him a few years ago yourself. That was one of your most irritating experiences, right? You got that right, he said with a pout. That guy's nothing but a bunch of hot air. Plus he had such a big mouth on him, all I wanted to do was to kick his teeth in. Strongest wind wizard, more like windbag. I feel sorry you guys had to deal with him too. I understand what you mean. He really was a pest, and I can't deny that he has powerful wind magic. But it was Natsu who dealt with him. He was also the one who defeated him as well, Erza said while Naruto's eyes went wide for a few seconds before he started laughing. Are you serious? That's priceless. I figured Aragorn must have gotten stronger since when I fought him, but he lost to a fire wizard. Natsu at that. Ha! No way. That must have been embarrassing. Like I said, a windbag. He took a breath and calmed down. But I guess it makes sense. Natsu never gives up, no matter who he's going up against. He's been getting stronger too. Besides, Aragorn was a pushover anyway. Well, he wasn't completely bluffing about his power. Hate to say, but he was very tough. Natsu only defeated him because he'd been able to briefly unlock the flames of emotion, Erza stated. Naruto shrugged. Whatever. A win's a win. Natsu might actually be a major threat someday. Anyway, what happened after that? Erza picked up where she left off with the story. After the team learned of what Eisenwald was planning, they made an attempt to stop them. They cornered them all at Ashibana Station, and it seemed that they were going to succeed in obtaining Lullaby from Aragorn and his goons. They were told by Aragorn himself that he was going to broadcast Lullaby's song in Ashibana, mainly the people that had gathered around because of the commotion that was caused. This made the fairy tale wizards fight Eisenwald with everything they had to stop them, with Erza having the people evacuate in the process. But it was all a trap to lure them in the station. Aragorn then encased the entire building in a powerful wind barrier, stopping them from escaping while he headed off to Clover. His real aim was to play Lullaby Death Melody there because that was also where the Guild Master Conference was being held, though they managed to escape the barrier thanks to Happy and Lucy. Wait, Happy and Lucy? How? I mean, Aragorn kinda does have some of the strongest defense spells I've ever seen. Also, what's Lucy's magic anyway? She's a wind mage too? Naruto asked, tilting his head slightly. No, nothing like that. See. Lucy is a celestial wizard. Also, she has some of the Golden Gate's keys. Apparently on a previous quest to the Duke Everloo Mansion, Happy had been given the Golden Celestial Gate key by Everloo's own celestial spirit, Virgo. Virgo told him to give Lucy the key so that she could be the one to form a new contract with her. It was thanks to Virgo's super tunneling ability that let us burrow underground and appear outside of the barrier. Erza explained while Naruto placed a fist in his palm. Oh, I get it now. So a celestial spirit wizard, huh? Those guys are pretty rare to see. Plus she also has a golden gate key? Aren't those the rarest ones? He asked while she nodded. Yes, they are. Especially since there's only 12 in existence. She actually has quite a few of them. I wouldn't be surprised if she managed to collect all of the others. Urza faced forward again and continued on with what she was saying before. She told of how they left to go follow Aragorn, but he had flown farther ahead of them with his head start, and they wouldn't have been able to catch him with the mobile. Happy flew and carried Natsu to intersect Aragorn, and then they confronted him. Since none of them except Happy had witnessed the battle, they only learned that Natsu was taking some pretty hard hits and his magic was obviously ineffective. Though Happy made Natsu angry and his true power, once again, the flames of emotion were briefly revealed. Then he defeated Aragorn. They thought that their quest had ended, but a lackey of Aragorn, Kageyama, had taken the flute, the magic mobile, and headed straight for Clover. Upon reaching the conference building, Kageyama was going to activate Lullaby, but Makarov caught him in the act. After saying a few choice words, Kageyama had surrendered himself. But afterwards Lullaby decided to release itself in the form of a giant wood-like sentient demon. After threatening to play its melody of death, Urza, Natsu and Gray started to beat it around the forest. Their attacks had punctured so many holes in its body that its death melody was impossible to activate, since the sound was released through all the holes. Natsu then destroyed it completely with his Fire Dragon Brilliant Flame attack. Though afterwards the conference hall was destroyed in the attack, Urza took a breath after retelling the whole story. She didn't bother explaining what happened when they came across that village that had a set spell placed upon it turning the town into monsters, because she didn't think that would interest Naruto as much. Well, it probably would, but not as much as the whole Lullaby fiasco, and most certainly not about when she was falsely arrested by the Magic Council. Who knows what Naruto would do if he learned of something like that? All she knows is that something very big would get destroyed, and that would have the council incredibly upset with Naruto and Fairy Tail at the same time. Anyway, she looked to him to see his response to the tale. His face seemed to have been a mix between one of excitement and disappointment. "What's wrong?" she asked nonchalantly. "What's with that look?" It's just that I wish I had come back home sooner. I mean, that all sounded really awesome. I wish I could have knocked a few more blocks off of Aragorn, or better yet had a shot at that Lullaby monster. You know how much I love fighting big opponents. I'm so jealous," Naruto exclaimed with a big sigh. "Oh please. If you were there to fight, you would have just used your takeover magic and crushed Lullaby with ease. There wouldn't have been any room for the three of us to face it at all. That wouldn't be fair now, would it?" Urza chastised while Naruto looked away with closed eyes as he pouted. "That's not true. I could have just used my Windrave magic. There's a difference between could have and would have. I know you too well. You always go overexcited whenever there's a giant adversary to face. In turn you use your takeovers to handle it." She raises a fist. "Now if I were to persuade you to give others a fighting chance." Naruto turned to her and rapidly shook his hands from side to side, while sweating. Nope. There's no need for that. I swear. I'd give you or anyone else a fighting chance." Urza put her fists down and nods. "Good. That's what I wanted to hear." Naruto starts crying anime tears. "Of course that's what you wanted to hear. If I say something you don't, you always feel the need to try and knock me out. At times I wonder why I even acknowledge you as family." Though Naruto obviously knew why he did so, and he'll never forget why he does. At first it started out as the similarities she possessed to his deceased mother, but during their many years spent together he's come to accept Urza a lot more for her than just thinking of her being in his mother's shadow. He figured he just did that to obtain some form of closure that he never really gained, no matter who tried to help him cope with the news of her departure when he was a child. That didn't mean he wanted to accept it before, though as fate would have it he met Urza. She didn't really do or say anything to not have him dwell on those old emotions, but Naruto had come to accept it because she was just there. Like this was his second chance at protecting the family he wasn't capable of doing in the past. This also goes for the rest of the members at Fairy Tail, even this Lucy character who he can't wait to meet. They were now at the station and boarded the one to Harjan. Good thing too, since it was just ready to take off. The ride was completely uneventful as Naruto actually dozed off and Urza was staring out the window, as she could only think about the kind of problems that Natsu, Happy, Gray and Lucy were currently facing. She made a fist with her left hand in her lap and hoped that they both got there before any serious catastrophes could take place. The train stopped at their destination, making Urza get up. She looked to see Naruto still snoozing before she slapped him on the head, which probably would have put a normal person in the hospital. He jerked up in pain before holding his head. "Oh geez Urza, you didn't have to hit me to wake me up, you know?" he complained. "It's time to get moving." "We're here," she said simply before she left out the door. Naruto grumbled something about bossy women before following after her. They walked through the bustling town of Harjan, heading straight for the docks. Walking through the southern part of town they noticed a bunch of construction work being done to the marina. "Geez, what happened here? Did somebody blow up the marina?" Naruto asked as he kept his gaze transfixed on it while they walked. Apparently from what I heard Natsu was the cause of it. He was fighting another fire wizard that was using Natsu nicknamed Salamander to gain popularity, especially with females. His true name was Bora, and when he made an attempt at kidnapping all those women, Natsu defeated him. This was the result, Urza answered while Naruto gave a small laugh. They may get in trouble a lot, but he couldn't help but fall in love with fairy tales over destructive tendencies. They really grew on him, though that doesn't mean he wished for it to happen on purpose, of course. Like everyone in the guild, he was tired of the magic council bearing down on their backs all the time. In a few minutes they were at the harbor looking out into the ocean. As always, there were multiple fishermen, sailors, shipwrights, and the like going about with their daily business. Naruto took a big whiff and exhaled. Man, smell that ocean air. Not really something I get to experience all that much. Well, I'm sure you're going to get very acquainted with it today, and the day of our return, Urza said while she and Naruto walked over to a wooden dock void of any ships or people. When they reached the end, Naruto stepped in front of Urza and stretched out a bit. Alright. Guess it's time for me to get to work. I got a bunch of swimming to do. Smacking both cheeks at the same time after his stretches, he dived headfirst into the water. Some people on some other docks not too far away from them had their attention drawn to the kid that just jumped into the water. Swimming in the water wasn't illegal, or anything, but they found it odd that he would do something like that fully clothed, and so far from the shore, though they were more concerned about seeing a bright flash of red light underneath the water before a giant wave erupted a bit further out. The wave caught the full attention of the workers and the civilians close enough to witness it. Urza was unfazed by it, and stood in her same spot, just barely getting wet. When it died down, people either screamed or gasped at the massive creature that had surfaced. The creature primarily resembles a large turtle, but with a crab-like shell, spikes all over its body, and 3 shrimp-like tails. Under its shell, it has red, muscle-like tissue. It has a pair of human-like arms and hands, but no hind legs. Its lower jaw is rather big and has teeth like horns. Together with its big forehead, which also has horns, it somewhat resembles a mouth with big teeth, making it look like the rest of the face is inside the mouth. The eyes are red with yellow pupils. This was Naruto's tailed beast takeover level 3, Isabu. Monster! Naruto and Urza adjusted their gaze to the crowd of people who were standing at the sidelines. The insult though seemed to have come from one of the fishermen as they all ran from the docks and back to the crowd at the harbor. Holy crap! That is one big turtle. No, it's a crab. Look at the shell. But it looks like a turtle. What about that boy that jumped in the water? He must have gotten eaten. Harjin suffered damage not too long ago. We can't survive an attack against something like that. Naruto, in his now deep voice, inhaled before giving a sigh. He slowly drifted over to Urza and looked down to her, who was smirking with her hands on her hips. Maybe you should avoid to do this in public areas, she said jokingly. I'll try not to make a habit out of it, he said while he heard some more people gasp. He looked to the crowd. It can talk. Some of them shouted while Naruto blinked before turning his head slightly away. For now that's kinda rude. What's so impressive if I can talk or not? Urza turned her head. Don't mind them. Let's get going. We have a mission to accomplish. Naruto looked down to her and nodded. He lifted his hand out of the water and moved it towards Urza slowly. He lined it with the dock, palm facing upwards. Urza stepped onto the hand while he lifted it to his head, where she stepped off. Urza crossed her arms as a wind blew in, making her hair a skirt waver. Alright, now follow my directions accordingly. If we go at full speed we should meet at Galena Island in the span of a few hours. He looked up at her. Alright then, sis. Lead the way. With that he slowly drifted away from the dock. When he felt he was far away enough he lifted all 3 of his massive tails in the air before slamming them onto the water's surface. A giant wave kicked up and the force applied shot the massive beast forward with Urza not even batting an eyelash at the insane speed. Even though he made sure to steer clear from the docks to not destroy them, the wave was still big enough to reach everyone at the harbor. None of them could get away in time as they were doused in the massive torrent. Much further out in the sea was a single ship. It was a pretty large vessel with big green sails, golden jagged attachments to the side, a large bowsprit with a white spiral around it, and it appeared to have had purple-like wings on the sides. Finally a flag the top of the mast. The flag itself shows 2 things. One was the strange design in it having a pumpkin-like face with its tongue out, with a knife and fork crossing under it. The second showed that it was a pirate ship and that flag was really a Jolly Roger. Steering the ship was a short pirate with a pirate hat that had his crew's Jolly Roger on it. He has gray hair and a large beard. He wears an eye patch over his left eye. The coat he wears is purple. His left hand is a hook. He has a pirate sword on his left side. He wears a large belt as well. The captain, come quick! Yelled one of the crew members. He was a big but flabby man with their pirate symbol tattooed on his stomach. He had a pointy beard and a brown bandana with their symbol on it too. What is it? He answered in a gruff voice. Not even paying attention to who was calling out to him. Some of the guys just spotted something headed our way. I think we may be in trouble. The captain sighed before turning his head to another one of his subordinates that just happened to be around. Keep us on course while I go check with this problem, he said sarcastically before he turned and made his way to the end of the ship. You got it, Captain, said the nameless lackey before taking his place at the helm. The captain found that a little under half of his crew were standing at the back of the ship looking out at the water. Two of them were holding telescopes looking at, from what the captain could see, a continuous splash of water. What in blazes? He questioned aloud. What is that? He asked to no one in particular. The men telescopes gained shocked expressions, catching some of the others off guard. Hey, what do you guys see out there? One of the other crew members asked before one of the men removed the object from his eye. It's a woman! He shouted, making the captain blink in surprise. What? He snatched the telescope from one of them and looked him. He focused on the image more and saw that it was a woman. Though she was pretty, she had this expression that gave him a few chills. But she wasn't on a boat or ship of the sort, but was standing on top of something. He couldn't see clearly because whatever it was is mostly submerged under the water. You think she's heading for us? Someone asked. Nah, it can't be. I mean, she's only one little woman and we're a mass of 30 pirates. She can't take us on by herself. Another answered. The captain put his hand up, still looking through the telescope. Don't go making assumptions like that. It doesn't look like she's heading for us, but is just going in the same direction. Where to, I have no idea. Any idea what she's riding on? Said the other one with the second telescope. As the woman drew closer, the pirates began to see that she started to rise. Or better yet, the object she was standing on was rising until they could see its face. All of the color was lost from all their faces while the two dropped their telescopes. It's a sea monster! They all screamed before they both drew closer and closer until the monster and woman swam right by them very fast, making huge waves and gusts of wind form. The wind made the captain's hat fly from his head and into the water, while the waves rocked the ship relentlessly. They weren't out of the woods yet as the sea monster raised all three of its tails again and slammed them back down into the water for a boost in speed. In turn, a bigger, more powerful wave of water sprung forth again, and the sight of it made the pirates scream even louder than before. Oh crap! The wave crashed onto their ship. The crew members were holding on to random objects, as to not get washed overboard while the ship itself was getting tossed and turned in every direction. What the hell is going on today? The captain yelled, holding onto the mast with all his might. Back with Isabu formed Naruto and Urza, they've been riding for the better part of 2 hours straight. By Urza's estimate, they've been making very good time and should be arriving to the island in a few minutes. Naruto perked up his head when it came into view. There it is, Urza. Galena Island, dead ahead. Urza nodded. Yes, I see. It shouldn't be long now. So what was the plan again? Go grab the 4 of them and leave? He asked while Urza re-equipped a broadsword in her right hand. Yes, she said simply. But those islanders could be in some hot water, and have been for a while now. You really don't think we can help them out a little bit? Urza closed her eyes, knowing that Naruto was going to ask this question sooner or later. No matter who or for whatever reason, he just couldn't seem to lead people on their own if it seemed they needed even a tiny speck of help. The guy practically wears his heart on his sleeve. I understand how you feel, Naruto. Don't think that I don't, and I'm not being heartless either, but that's not the reason we're here. We've only been tasked with retrieving Natsu and the others. Nothing more. These people may be under a curse, but this entire quest was a mistake in the first place. Now I don't want to hear anything more about it. She finished. Naruto inwardly sighed at her, but knew that when she wanted to drop a matter in regards to whatever reason, then it was to never be brought back up again. But he knew the stakes as well. No matter how much he wanted to help those people, the guild comes first overall. At least this time. He honestly felt the same way that Urza did, but unlike Urza, he couldn't help but feel sympathy to those who deserve it. But Urza was also right about the qualified members of their guild not accepting the islanders' plea, but some average wizards. Because of that, there wasn't really anything the two of them could do. Who knows? That might change once we get there. He thought when they started to approach the shore. When they reached the island, Urza jumped from Naruto's head onto the sandy ground. Naruto used his arms to pull himself onto the sand and was then covered in a red light and black particles. His form quickly shrunk down before he walked forward and stretched. Man, that was a good workout. Workout? You didn't have to do much of anything besides use your tails to swim and propel yourself quickly. Urza stated. Hey, it's hard work having to keep flexing my tails like that. He countered. He looked around the beach, and then up the cliff that was in front of them. So where do you think we should start looking? He asked. We should go find the village first. They could be there above all else. There's also the chance that they'll come to us. He said jokingly when they started to walk. Well, there is that chance, of course. She stated. At the center of the island was the village that was previously spoken of. Or at least there used to be. All that was left was a big circular plot of land at the center, and at the edges the area seemed to have sunk into the ground. A better explanation would be that it was melted away. The villagers themselves were currently in some sort of demonic-looking forms as they all stood around the little piece of land that was left. Though they weren't alone. Among them were the fairy tale wizards that were at the center of this mess. One was male with pink hair. His outfit consists of a sleeveless, gold-trimmed, black waistcoat, often left open and untucked, exposing his bare chest, white knee-length trousers, a thick black wristband on his left wrist, black open-toed sandals and a scale-patterned white scarf. His fairy tale emblem was red and on his right shoulder. The second was female, and had a small brown leather case of keys on her hip. She wore brown knee-high boots, a white skirt with a slightly loose blue belt, a sleeveless green shirt with a pink tank top underneath. Her fairy tale emblem was pink on the back of her right hand. The third was a blue cat with a green bag tied around his neck. His fairy tale emblem was green and at the top of his back, but his green bag covered it. Natsu dragged Neil, Lucy, Heartfilia, and Happy. Thought their fourth companion, Grey Fullbuster, was lying behind them on the ground. He was covered in many bruises and had some slight trouble breathing. They stood in front of the villagers getting ready to confront 3 adversaries that were standing in the large pit of where the village was. The wave magic user, Yuka Suzuki. The doll magic user, Sherry Blendy, and her giant, corset-top-wearing rat standing behind her, Angelica. Finally the dogman Toby Horhorda. Yuka gave a huff as placed his hands behind his back, observing the villagers and the wizards that had interrupted their plans. 50 villagers, 2 wizards. Shouldn't take more than 15 minutes. He concluded while Toby gave a noise that was something between a growl and a mewling snarl. You ready? Natsu said to Lucy, getting in a stance. Lucy placed one hand on her hip and the other was on the whip hook to the left of it. Yeah? She responded. Happy raised a paw in the air, not wanting to be left out. Count again, 'cause there's 3 wizards. Unknown to them, Gray stirred a bit, and slightly opened his eyes, finally regaining consciousness. The village elder Mocha, who was currently in his demon form along with the rest of his villagers, gazed around at what used to be their home, literally melted away by a large mass of green acid that was meant to eradicate them had it not been for Natsu to disperse it in a wide area. He gripped the wooden staff in his left hand tighter with every second and grit his fangs. His gaze then adjusted to the 3 enemy wizards, plus 1 giant rat. His anger was reaching a boiling point to such a degree that it could have rivaled Natsu's fire magic. How dare they? Such disrespect! He growled lowly. He then attempted to run forward towards their enemies, and teach them a lesson he hoped they would remember for as long as they lived, but he was being held back by 3 of his villagers. So he went from attacking to screaming threats. Just calm down, Chief, said the red one who was holding one of Mocha's legs and under his left arm. We have to get out of here, sir, said the blue one who was having his head get pushed back with Mocha's hand pressing against his face. We don't want to get caught in the middle of a magic battle, said the green one who was pressing against Mocha's shoulders to push him back. Yet his own head was being used as a stepping stone. Mocha growled and shook his head to the side rapidly. I'm not going anywhere. Growling at their leader's stubbornness, the red one helped his friends to support Mocha. Hurry and get him to safety, he said. The others too hauled him away with Mocha still screaming threats to the enemy wizards. I'm not afraid of you. Put me down and let me teach them a lesson. Gray managed to get to his feet and slowly stood up. His legs wobbled a bit, and he was breathing very heavy. Oh, let me help. Lucy and Happy turned to face him. Gray, you came too, Lucy said in surprise. Natsu didn't bother tuning around to face him at all. Not gonna happen. We don't need your help, he said. Gray kept breathing heavy. His gaze now focused on Natsu. Natsu, don't do this to me. The moment the words left his mouth, Natsu's fist slammed into his gut hard. Gray's already bruised body couldn't take the extra force and he groaned in pain. Just lie down and get some rest. Gray gripped Natsu's arm and scarf and managed to force a little glare. Someday he wheezed before he lost all of his remaining strength, and he slumped forward. Natsu caught him and held him up. I'll kill Gray finished before he was unconscious once more. But why? Lucy asked in a near whisper. He's giving Gray some tough love, Happy answered. Natsu knows he's in no condition to fight, so he had to stop him. That means deep down they really do care. Lucy mumbled to herself. Natsu then hefted Gray over his shoulder and walked over to the red demon villager that helped to keep Mocha from trouble. Already knowing what to do, he took him off Natsu's hands and placed him on On's shoulder. Natsu walked back to where the other 2 stood and faced their adversaries. Can you look after him for us? Lucy asked. He nodded. No problem, Miss Lucy. He turned to the rest of the villagers standing watch. All right, let's go. With that, the villagers, plus Gray, started to make their exit to another location. Sherry smirked and placed a hand on her hip as she watched the retreating villagers. We're not leaving until every person in this village is dead. Angelica gave a squeak before jumping high into the air, performing a backflip. When she came around and started to spin her tail really quickly in a propeller-like motion, making her fly, Sherry jumped herself right into Angelica's hands as they flew overhead of Natsu, Lucy and Happy. Lucy turned and got ready to chase after them until everyone saw a shadow fly past under Angelica, and before anyone could blink, a slash followed by a yellow trail appeared along the giant rat's stomach. Angelica squealed loudly in pain before her tail stopped spinning, and she fell right onto the ground in a big heap. Sherry managed to force herself from Angelica's arms. She covered her mouth with both hands in a giant gasp before rushing to her pet's side. Angelica! What happened to you, darling? Are you hurt? Her eyes adjusted to Angelica's side. She was able to see a part of her ripped clothing along her stomach, and the wound seemed to be bleeding slightly. Her world was close to breaking as she gripped the side of her face in horror, and shook her head side to side rapidly. Igug. No. My sweet, poor Angelica. Who could have possibly done this to you? Sherry screamed as she felt a mass of tears run down her face. The others were just as confused. What the? was all Natsu could say. She just went down. But how? Lucy said, blinking a few times. Happy raised a paw. I have no idea, but at least they won't be able to catch up to the villagers. Yuka couldn't help his surprised expression either. But that slowly faded and was replaced with narrowed eyes and a slightly interested look. What? Toby, did you see that? Toby was just blinking as he had no idea what was going on. He just scratched his head behind his dog ears. Not really. What just happened? It was quick, but they were just attacked. If I had to guess, it would seem that these fairies have some backup. Yuka explained. Toby just nodded, now understanding, and turned his attention back to the others. Something caught his eye when he saw a figure falling from the sky. He placed a hand over his forehead to try and get a more accurate look. Hey Yuka, you see that up there? Yuka turned to him. See what? When Toby didn't answer him, he turned his head to where his gaze was. He smirked when he saw the shadowed figure. Oh, that? If I had to guess, I would say that's their backup. This is probably going to be a bit more fun than we anticipated. The figure landed on the ground right in front of Natsu, Lucy, and Happy. They all gasped when they saw who it was that had their back turned to them. It's Urza! Lucy exclaimed. Urza didn't pay her or the other two any mind as she kept her gaze focused on Sherry. A broadsword in her left hand. For Natsu and Happy, their nerves were getting the best of them, not even being able to form words in their mouths. They just knew they were going to get it from Urza. They could pretty much see the many different ways of their demise playing out in their heads. They knew how crazy Urza was about rule breakers of the guild, and they broke one of the biggest yet. Going on a job they knew they were not qualified for. Sherry got up from Angelica's side and stared at Urza. She noticed the sword in her hand and started glared at her with clenched fists. Are you the one that did this to my precious Angelica? I am. Urza stated, simply, making Sherry growl at her. And I take it you and your two partners behind us are the ones who's been terrorizing the people on this island as well as harassing my guildmates. Sherry tried to compose herself with a condescending smirk. Though on the inside she was still positively fuming. She was going to make this girl pay for what she had done. Yuka, on the other hand, was staring at Urza intently. Oh. So you're from Fairy Tail as well, is it? It doesn't matter how many of you there are, you have no chance at defeating us. He cupped his chin and showed a look of intense thinking. That woman, I swear I've seen her somewhere before. But, so who the hell are you supposed to be anyway? Sherry demanded as she pointed a finger at Urza. Said woman stabbed the tip of her sword into the ground with her hand on the pommel. My name is Urza Scarlet. Yuka's eyes shot open and he gave a startled gasp. His eyes opened up as he gazed at Urza with a hint of fear. Did I just hear right? The Urza Scarlet. Toby turned to face Yuka and tilted his head confused. What's got you all riled up, Yuka? Yuka turned his attention to his canine/human companion. Toby, don't you have any idea who that is? Toby just turned his head to Urza and stared at her for a good minute. Not really. Yuka sighed and slapped his forehead. Of course the dense one of the group wouldn't have the foggiest clue. That woman Toby is Titania Urza of Fairy Tail. One of the strongest S-class wizards in the guild and is renowned among other guilds. She's probably going to be the toughest opponent that any of us faced. He started to sweat a little bit. She could even be capable of beating the Cold Emperor. Toby became shocked, jerked his body back. Really? She's that strong? Yuka chuckled to try and cover up his nervousness. It seems that this is going to be even more troublesome than I imagined it would. Sherry, having overheard her comrades, wasn't fazed at all by who Urza was. S-class wizard or not, Urza wasn't stronger than her Cold Emperor. Not only that, there was the revival of Deliora. Once the ancient beast of destruction was completely freed, any hopes of these peons stopping it would be non-existent. But before any of that, he was going to make her pay for what she did to Angelica, who was still unconscious from the blow. Now it's time to make you pay for what you've done. This is for my Angelica. Sherry raises her hands and hooks her fingers. The ground around her starts to lift up. Marionette attack. Rock doll. The stone she was standing on lifted into the air as the other mass of rocks were merging together. Watch out. Here she comes. Natsu said as he got in a stance. Whatever it is, the three of us should be able to take care of it, no problem. Lucy said, already reaching for Tora's key. Happy growled as he repeatedly jumped in the air and flailed his limbs. Why does everyone keep forgetting about me? I can help out too. Lucy turned to Happy and gave a little smile with closed eyes. Sorry Happy, but you'll just get in the way. Happy's world was close to breaking as he gained a cloud of depression over him and fell to his knees. What? Lucy telling me I'd get in the way? Lucy? Lucy! Then what does that make me? Even though she was glad to have made the blue cat react this way, she was getting really upset about how he was mentioning her in context. Wait, what's that supposed to mean? She yelled at him. Urza remained silent as she watched the rock doll create itself. It seemed to have been 15 foot tall, and was really bulky. It had 2 hollow eyes and a mouth with thick block-shaped teeth. Sherry was standing on top of its head. Lucy's eyes went wide as the hand going for her keys stopped. I don't think I have a spirit strong enough to even touch that thick, Lucy exclaimed. Natsu growled at the large enemy, and punched his left fist in his right hands, making wisps of flame burst forth. Alright then, I guess me and Urza will just have to take care of it then, Natsu. Stay where you are. Urza demanded. What? He questioned. Lucy was a bit confused as well and Happy was still sulking. But why Urza? I mean I know you're strong but if we work together we Lucy started but when Urza turned her head to them they both went immediately speechless. Urza's eyes were shadow over and she had the visage of a demon. With a nervous smile Natsu slowly turned his head to Lucy, who was afraid to break the gaze that Urza had on them. You think she's upset about us taking on this S-class quest? He whispered but Lucy couldn't help but cry anime tears. What do you think? So you wish to fight me by yourself? Fine then. My rock doll will crush you to beneath its feet. Sherry declared with a near psychotic smirk. Urza turned her head back around to the doll and looked up at the loved obsessed girl. I never said that I would be the one to battle you. As it so happens I came here with another member of our guild. You can take your chances with him, she stated. Yuka clenched his fists. So now we have to deal with 2 more enemies instead of just 1? Toby gave a small growl and looked to his friend. That's very bad for us, right? Yuka didn't respond to him so Toby took his silence as a yes. Huh? What? Natsu said simply. Who else could have come with Urza? Would Makarov allow someone else who wasn't S-class to come find them? But that wouldn't have seemed right, would it? He wouldn't just send anyone with Urza, they had to have been S-class too. But none of the people he thought of came to mind. Laxus was the only one who wouldn't want to help and Mira hasn't fought anyone in years. That left 3 others but those 3 have away on missions themselves. That just meant one thing. One of them must have come back. Wait, so someone else from the guild came too? Lucy asked Urza who didn't answer her, making Lucy's sweat drop. Man, she must be really upset. I just hope that she doesn't try and hurt us. I mean Natsu, Happy and Gray can take a beating but I'm too delicate. So she shouldn't hurt me instead. She thought hopefully. I wonder who it could be. Happy said standing right next to Lucy, who turned to him immediately. What the? Now you're not depressed, she yelled. Happy waved her off. Hey, I'm curious. I mean I can be depressed around Urza but there's a bunch of people in the guild I like. Maybe seeing who it is will brighten up my mood. Lucy sighed at the cat's antics. I hope it's not by some rare chance. She mumbled but Happy's sensitive hearing picked up on it. Well, the universe isn't very kind to you, Lucy. I'm comfortable with nearly everyone. Who knows who it'll be? He said with yellow sparkles jumping around his face. Sherry placed her hands on her hips and leaned forward a little, staring at Urza. Well, come on then. Bring out this little friend of yours. You'll all die in the name of the Cold Emperor. Urza rose an eyebrow. Is that so? She took her hand from the pommel of the sword and bent her index finger and thumb, so that they were facing each other. She placed them near her mouth before saying, just remember that you wished for this. She then placed the tips of her fingers a little past her lips and gave a very loud whistle. After a few seconds Natsu looked up a bit in confusion. HM? What the? He starts to sniff the air as a distinct scent entered his nostrils. That smell is so familiar. That has to be the guy that's here. Can you tell who it is, Natsu? Happy asked. Before he could answer it everyone felt a rumbling. With each couple of seconds the rumbling grew more and more intense. Gah! What is that? An earthquake? Lucy questioned in a startled fashion. She looked to her feet and tried to remain standing. Yuka and Toby weren't faring much better than she was, though they were also looking around the area to find anything out of the ordinary for what would cause this. Natsu noticed that the bigger the force of the quakes the stronger that distinct scent got. He just needed one more whiff before he lost color in his face completely. Oh no. He came back? He said meekly. What do you mean, Natsu? Who's coming? Lucy demanded. She looked too happy to see his expression the exact same as Natsu's. A face completely white and his mouth hanging wide open. No way, that's unfair. Why him? Why not someone I wanted to see? Lucy was tired of not having anybody answer her, though she was getting more and more worried by the second. Will someone tell me what the heck is going on? She screamed. Happy's lips started to quiver. He's the one guy in the entire guild that's more of a monster than even Urza is. Natsu gulped. Not even the old man's magic is scarier than what he can do. What's worse is that he can sometimes have the same temper as Urza too. Lucy's mouth hung open as her upper lip twitched. There's someone in the guild whose magic is worse than the master's, and apparently is scarier than Urza? And now that guy is headed towards us. She got her answer when she heard a very loud beastly roar, making her hunch over a little and cover her ears. The force from the noise nearly blasting out her eardrums. Even when the sound stopped, and she still kept her eyes closed but the rumbling was now close. Shelley screamed something but it was muffled since Lucy was currently trying to block out sound. She felt the ground shaking even more, making her fall on her behind. The process made her remove her hands from her ears and her head to face forward. In that moment she wished that she hadn't. She caught the sight of a massive blot of reddish-orange fur in her field of vision. Her head slowly traveled upwards to see that it was apparently some form of giant creature that had dwarfed Shelley's rock doll. It had the lower body of a canine. Its hind paws had 4 toes but sharp claws on them. Looking up higher, its torso had the structure of a man, especially with the arms. Looking to the left, and then right, she found its hands, with opposable thumbs, as well as the massive claws on them as well. Behind it swung 9 bushy tails that seemed to have had minds of their own, as they weaved about. Adjusting her neck again until she was looking straight up, she finally reached the beast's own head, which was staring down at them all. It has the face of a fox. There were multiple black whiskers on both of its cheeks. It had a black nose and a black line circling around its mouth, which was locked in a snarl and held many razor-sharp fangs. Lucy swore that she even saw a few glisten. It had red eyes with slit pupils, and it seemed the black fur from its eyes attached to its ears. Lucy, Sherry, and Toby were now following Natsu and Happy's lead and lost their color too. Yuka took a single step back while his face was the definition of horror at seeing such a beast. Urza was the only one who didn't seem fazed by the creature's appearance in the slightest. She didn't even bother looking to Sherry and just closed her eyes with her head slightly facing downward. So do you still think that you will be able to take him on? By all means you can go ahead and try your luck, but something tells me that the outcome I see is very different from the one you did prior. Urza goaded on. Sherry had no words to speak of. This whatever it was had its gaze locked on her. Her specifically. She noticed some saliva leak from its maw, through its clenched teeth, and she couldn't help but worry this monster's sole intention was to gobble her and her rock doll whole. It was amazing that she hadn't fainted yet. The beast blinked before it pushed itself up from its hands, now perfectly standing on its hind paws. The massive fox bent its arms and lifted its head to the night sky, releasing a massive roars that literally shook the surrounding forests and made smaller quakes. Giant winds were also generated from the shock. This action is what finally set the speechless wizards below off. Lucy, Natsu, Happy, Sherry and Toby screamed in absolute terror at the monstrous beast. Lucy was crying a mass of anime tears, but she kept her eyes open and pointed an accusing finger at the demon fox. Agag. What in the heck is that thing? What is with this crazy island and all of its giant monsters? She put her finger down and held the sides of her head tightly. This all has to be some kinda crazy dream. Someone please wake me up. No. The humongous fox's roar quieted down after a while, though it was still standing on its hind legs, which of course made it look even bigger than before. Lucy lucky that she didn't have to currently use the bathroom, otherwise she would have gone on herself right there. What in the name of all that is beautiful is that hideous beast? Sherry screamed at the top of her lungs. Urza looked at her for a second. Didn't I just tell you? She then looked up to the monster fox. That's the guild member who came along with me. You believe that you said you would take him on. So go and do it, but I don't think the odds would be in your favor. Lucy gasped and scooted back a little. But how is that possible? That thing is part of our guild. What's it supposed to be? Our secret pet monster fox or something? No, it isn't. He's one of the strongest wizards fairy tales ever had. Natsu answered. His demeanor calmed down a bit, but he was still sweating up a storm. Happy even more so. So if he's not some kind of monster, then who is he? Lucy asked. Since she saw Makarov transform into the giant shadow enigma with his titan magic, she didn't deem it impossible for that thing to be a person. She also knows that she never really met everyone in the guild yet, as some of them were either on missions or were probably occupied with something else. She heard Happy utter a name, and then Naruto. He said. Lucy blinked at the name and looked up to the monster. So that's his name then? She questioned, but it was rhetorical. Naruto. Urza called out to him without fear. As you can see, this girl, her pet rat, and the 2 in the ditch behind us are our enemies. I leave them to you to handle. The giant fox looked down to Urza before falling on all fours again. It gave a slight but completely noticeable nod. I'll send them flying, Urza. It's a shame this won't be entertaining for me. Especially since I only get like this for special occasions, he said in a very deep and rumbling voice. Besides being surprised hearing it speak, its voice sent shivers down Lucy's spine. As well as the 3 rogue wizards. Yuka and Toby took multiple steps back, not wanting to even think of going against a creature like that, especially when he gazed in their direction, but they weren't his current focus yet. With a small rumble in his throat, 2 of Naruto's 9 tails swung around and shot forward quickly. Sherry shouted in fright as one of the tails wrapped around her rock doll and easily crushed it to pieces, before grasping her with the tip. The second tail wrapped around the still unconscious Angelica's waist. He lifted the 2 of them up to eye level before giving a huff, finally setting his sights on Yuka and Toby. Aha! That monster fox thing got Sherry. It's gonna crush her and then come after us. Toby screamed with his hands on his face. What are we gonna do, Yuka? I'm too young to get killed by a monster. I don't know. Just shut up, Toby. I can't concentrate. Yuka yelled, not being able to keep his calm composure anymore. Naruto sneered at their reactions. The tails that held Sherry and Angelica were slightly wound back at the tips. TCH. You sacks of meat aren't even worth the effort. I'd insult myself if I had to do anything of the sort to such lowly trash. 5. With that, the tips of the 2 tails with his captives were flung forward to Toby and Yuka's location. Shelly was screaming her head off, as well as her 2 accomplices. Sherry because she was flung in the air with no way of a safe landing, with Angelica out cold. The other two because they were thrown in their direction, and Angelica was so huge that they couldn't get out of the way in time before her body crashed into them. Sherry was lucky that she did get that soft landing by falling on her animal friend, but the momentum she picked up from being tossed away like that made her bounce off, and onto the dirt. Yuka and Toby managed to crawl from under the giant rodent, and found Sherry in front of them with swirls in her eyes from the rush, but she was still fully conscious. Toby got to his knees and grasped her shoulders before shaking her wildly. Sherry, hurry and get up. We need to get the hell out of here and away from that giant furball. A tick mark appeared on Naruto's forehead at the comment. Huh, she said in a daze. Her vision started to come back before she shook her head. She stared right up at Toby before whooping to her feet startled. We need to get away and back to the Cold Emperor. There's no way I'm going to go anywhere near that flea-bitten mongrel again. The giant fox gained another tick mark. Hey! Her canine-like companion yelled. Oh, shut it, Toby. We don't have time for that. She yelled. Yuka got between the two of them. Can you both just be quiet? Bicker later, but we need to retreat for now. Sherry looked to her unconscious pet. But what about Angelica? What about her? We can't pick her up or anything. She's out cold, and she can't move. Just leave her. Yuka shouted back, making Sherry gasp and run over to her friend. She placed her hands on the rat and gripped her clothes. No. You can't possibly mean that. Are you serious? Do you see the situation we're in now? I agree with Yuka. I'd rather run away and live than stay and die just for an oversized rat, Toby yelled, shaking his fists. Sherry shook her head and hugged her massive body. No. I'm not leaving her. You can't make me. I mean, she's part of our team, right? How can you both even think about abandoning her? I love her. Yuka desperately placed a hand on her shoulder and turned Shelly around, who had tears in her eyes. What's more important to you? This animal, or the Cold Emperor? Sherry gasped before looking off to the side. Well, Toby decided to help out in the persuasion. And if we die, then who's going to help the big guy with Deliora? And if you die, Sherry, then who's gonna marry him? Sherry made a massive gasp as her face was coated in a blush. That had always been her dream. To meet her dream man and get married. She believed the Cold Emperor was the one, and all she wanted was to please him in any way possible in hopes that he would return her feelings. Her attempts haven't been successful yet, but she always felt they would pay off someday. Sherry slowly wiped the tears from her face. Well, I guess when you put it like that, Yuka and Toby inwardly cheered to see that Sherry was coming to their side. It was honestly the most logical choice anyway. Staying here to take on 3 wizards, they still didn't count happy, and a monster fox for a rat was not worth it. Awesome, and don't feel bad. You can always get another pet or something. Now let's get out of here already, Toby exclaimed. When they were about to leave, they heard a big growl coming from Naruto, which drew their attention again. His claws were digging into the earth, and his lips were spread in a bigger snarl than before, showing off his full set of steel-tearing fangs. His eyes narrowed as he focused on the rogue wizards. Lucy's eyes went wide with a nervous smile. He seems really mad. Wow, very perceptive, Lucy. Happy said in a sarcastic/horrified tone. She didn't even pay him any mind to the remark, and it was amazing how he could even crack jokes in his current state. You know something? It's cowards like you that I absolutely despise the most. You mean to say that you're willing to abandon a comrade and pay their life tribute just to save your own? Animal? Human? Does it matter? She's supposed to be a part of your team. One's of your friends even. He glares at Shelly, who takes a step back. Her back hitting Angelica. And you're supposed to be her master. You were just declaring how you would never leave her, and I'd wager she would do the same. But mention a guy you have a damn crush on, and you would just abandon her at the drop of a hat. Sherry flinched at his words. She couldn't deny that what he said was true, but she honestly didn't wish to admit it. I'm getting sick just looking at you. It's taking all of my willpower to not devour you where you stand. Know this. Whoever is the ringleader for all of this chaos towards these people is going to pay for everything that has happened here. That goes for you as well. You'll suffer for tormenting these people. Now get out of my sight. Naruto took a very huge intake of air and pulled his head back. When the build-up reached its peak, he lets loose with another literal earth-shattering roar in Yuka's, Toby's, Sherry's, and Angelica's direction. Though Lucy, Natsu, and Happy still shielded their eyes from the explosion of sound, the force from the shout, along with the close proximity, had lifted the 4 of them off the ground and blasted them to the far side of the island. Their screams could be heard as they flew off and crashed along somewhere the forestry. Slowly the roaring died down and Naruto took a big huff as his anger ebbed away a little. The landscape he was aiming for has a bunch of upturned chunks of rock, but not much else since it was destroyed beforehand. 6. Well, that takes care of those annoyances, Naruto said in a bitter tone. For now, at least. I'm sure they'll be back on their feet in no time. Urza looked up to him. Good job, by the way. I honestly believed I was going to attack them myself at the thought of someone treating their comrades like that. Lucy took a look at the landscape while also listening to their conversation. Wow. That was pretty scary. She gave a big sigh. I think I'm going to need to take it easy before I die of a heart attack. Lucy got up and then took a few steps forward. Hey Urza, once again Urza gave Lucy her death glare, making her feel very small. It didn't help that the giant monster fox was doing the same thing, which made her tremble. Lucy, I assume you know why we're here? She asked in a dark tone. Lucy gulped and blinked once with big eyes. To take us back? She then rubbed her hands and had them at the side of her face and gave a hopeful smile. Promise you won't hurt me? She stood stock still waiting for a reply, but the two of them just kept glaring at her with that same stare. In that instant Happy formed his wings and took off as fast as he could in one direction, while Natsu got up and ran in the other. Naruto's eyes wandered to both the left and right before two more tails extended in both directions. One managed to grab Happy's own tail and pull him back, while the other grabbed Natsu's ankle and tripped him up, making him fall on his face. Naruto brought his tails back and let the two dangle in front of his face. And where in the hell do you both think you were going? You weren't running away, were you? The two shook their heads from side to side rapidly. What? No, it's not like that at all, Natsu said in a nervous laugh. I mean, I thought I smelled someone else around here and I was gonna go check? It could have been this masked creep we saw around here. I don't know about Happy though. What? The blue cat screamed. He held out his paws and shook his head some more. No, that's not true either, Naruto. I was doing something, the fox blinked and said in a disbelieving tone. Really? Happy nodded rapidly. Yeah. I was. He started to sweat when Naruto's eyes started to narrow at him. Happy raked his brain for anything that sounded believable, but they all came up short. Well, except for one. I was training, he yelled. Naruto rose an eyebrow and looked genuinely surprised. Seriously? You've been training? Just like I told you to do? I thought for sure you'd be shirking your work. No, seriously. I mean, I just wanted to show you how much faster I've gotten. That's why. See, I was gonna come back, but you grabbed me before I could. So Happy's sentence trailed off. He inwardly sighed when he saw the fox's face light up a little. Not in happiness but in curiosity. The fox was then covered in a red light with black particles and shrunk down in size until he was 6 foot tall. He dropped Natsu and Happy onto the ground but kept his eyes on the cat. So you seriously have been training to use my wind rave, huh? Well, I have to say I'm actually impressed, Happy. I thought for sure that you'd get lazy and just sit around eating fish. Glad to know you're taking it seriously. He congratulated. Happy got to his knees and rubbed the back of his head. Well, what can I say? I'm full of surprises. He said a bit nervously, but he tried his best to calm down. He was lying right through his teeth. He hasn't even attempted to try and learn Naruto's wind rave magic. He wanted to at first, but he didn't expect the training to be so hard. Who was he kidding? He didn't expect to train. He thought that learning it would be easy, especially since his air magic is kind of like a caster air magic. But when Naruto started to put him in the ringer, he always had some excuse ready as to why he couldn't train, and Naruto being Naruto, basically being really dense, believed them. But even Happy knew that the constant excuses made the takeover mage suspicious, and he couldn't keep them up forever. Now all he needs is for Naruto to just accept that he knows the magic and, well, I'm going to have to see what you're capable of now. I mean, I have been away on another mission for 4 months. You should have easily learned at least 3 wind rave techniques by then. Matter of fact, you'll show me what you got before we leave the island. That way I won't forget later, he exclaimed. Happy world broke apart instantly. He wants to see the magic before they leave the island. He wasn't really expecting that. But if Naruto finds out, and he's most definitely going to find out, that he's been lying all this time and doesn't even know one other spell, and Happy really has been sitting on his ass for the past couple of years doing nothing, then I'm dead, he cried in his mind. What, do you shrunk? Lucy exclaimed. Natsu lifted up his head and looked to her. Yeah, he's able to do that. See, Naruto's a takeover wizard. Just like Elfman, he can change the size of his forms. Right now, he's in his strongest form, he explained to her. So this is just a takeover then? Naruto looked to Lucy and raised a hand in a wave. You must be this Lucy girl I've kept hearing about. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Well, not right now at least. When I'm in this state, I'm the 9-tailed demon fox, Kurama. Demon fox? So what do you really look like then? Lucy asked. Naruto was coated in the usual light of his takeovers before turning back to normal. Like this, he stated simply. Lucy wasn't really expecting a boy around her age to be able to transform into something so viscous. Plus his voice was completely different from when he was in that monster form. She's never really seen a full body takeover before, so she didn't know if the whole voice changing thing was normal. With the way he spoke, tone of voice as well as the beastly transformation, she more than likely expected Naruto to have been a full-grown man or something. Now where's Gray? Urza asked the three, intervening on the little conversation. Natsu stood up and looked Urza in the eye. Urza, wait a second. You both don't even know what's going on here. There's this creep here that trying to bring some demon back to life. This guy is also supposed to be Gray's former buddy or something, since they trained under the same person. Lucy joined in. There's also the islanders. They're suffering because of the spell that they're using to revive this demon. They've turned into monsters. Lucy looks to the bottom right. We just thought that if we work together we might be able to help them. Urza wasn't moved in the slightest. None of that is our concern. Say what? What do you mean none of it's your concern? These people are suffering and you're saying you don't care. Natsu yelled. Please Urza, Naruto, let us finish this job. We can't leave things this way. Lucy yelled too. In that quick instant Naruto was behind Natsu and bent his arm behind his back, harshly while wrapping his other one around his neck. Urza took her sword and lifted it to Lucy's face, shocking her for the umpteenth time. Naruto and Urza both gave glares at their respective captives. Happy was off to the side frightened, too afraid to attempt to run away again. You guys just don't seem to get it, huh? You three broke the guild's rules. Natsu, Happy, this is a completely new level of stupid for you guys, Naruto said irritated while Natsu wheezed a little. Not only that but you betrayed Master Makarov's trust. You will be lucky if you manage to walk away with your lives, she said lowly, with her eyes shadowed by her hair. Lucy donned a look in fear once again, but in a more genuine sense, instead of a comical one. Okay, now I'm scared, she thought with specks of tears bringing the edge of her eyes. Urza took a step closer making Lucy take a step back. Now show us where Gray is being kept. Right now, Lucy gulped. We asked the villagers to take care of him. He's been hurt really badly, and it wouldn't be good if he was moved anywhere. I'm sure that they're healing him right now. Natsu grunted and looked to Naruto but turning his head with some difficulty. Yeah. By that other ice punk that I was talking about. Gray got banged up a lot. Because of that we won't be able to leave, right away. Happy added. Naruto and Urza looked to each other before they dropped their sword/grip. Lucy exhaled a breath she didn't know she was holding and Natsu rubbed his sore arm. Urza's sword vanished in her weapon pocket dimension. Very well then. We'll stay for the night, but when Gray regains consciousness we're leaving right away. That's final. Understood? The other three nodded reluctantly. Lucy and Happy gave weary sighs but Natsu just growled. He really didn't want to have things end like this. He was already hatching a little plan but he needed to have the others fall asleep first. Like Lucy said, there is no way in hell I'm going to leave things the way it is. That bastard and his cronies are gonna pay for all this. What if Naruto has 10-tailed transformation in Fairy Tail? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoyed this content then do consider subscribing to my channel. And leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.